So your DRB members, oh, and we just had Rob join as well. So the DRB members that are present are Kevin, Tom, Carol, Ted, and Brenda. Guests, I've got a list. So I've got Robin Deppinall, who I gave you before, Steve Valero, who I gave you before. We have Jason Barnard, Emily Spalding-Freelick, Peggy Spalding, Chris Acker, and Wade Acker. If I missed anyone, perfect.
What was the last name, please?
Acker?
First name of the last one.
Wade Acker.
Thank you.
All right, the meeting will come to order. First item on the agenda, we don't have any adjustments, I take it, to the agenda. We have a full agenda, so let's roll. First item is permit number 21-402, Clark Investment Properties located at Liberty Street, parcel number 22.50.13, requesting final approval for a 4-lot subdivision. We have Kevin LaRose. There's Kevin LaRose here for the applicants. Any other appearances for the applicants? Or are you by yourself, Kevin?
I'm by myself as far as I know.
Okay. So this is the second hearing. You were, as I recall, given some homework the last time around, including on landscaping and such. So can you walk us through what revisions or clarifications you've made to the plan?
Do you need to swear in any neighbors that may be there?
Once we're done with him before they talk. Okay.
Kevin? Yep.
Kevin, let me swear you into please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give before this Development Review Board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, so take us through what tweaks you've made since the last time around, please.
Sure. The first one, as you mentioned, was the landscaped buffer. I actually went and spent a little time with Chris just to make sure I understood the intent of the rule. And with that, with the updated survey, which I'm hoping that you guys can see, there is a requirement for both trees and shrubs. Trees need to be at least 10 feet tall. There was no sizing that I saw for the shrubs, but basically what we are providing in the 25-foot buffer between the residential and the commercial lot are 13 red maples. There are 4 existing hard maples that are there that we intend to use as part of that count, and 25 arborvitaes that would hit the requirements of 16 trees minimum and 24 shrubs minimum based upon the 300 square feet per tree and 200 square feet per shrub requirement that's in the current regs.
You repeat the number of arborvitae?
25.
Okay, and how big are those on installation?
I don't know, 4 feet. I didn't see a minimum. I'm happy to hit the minimum, but I did not see that in the book.
Okay. All right, and was there an adjustment of the property boundaries for the subdivided parcels at all?
Yeah, to make that 25-foot buffer work, we had to move that property line to the north 15 feet. I'm sorry, 10 feet. And that provided the extra 10 feet that we needed to get the minimum of the 25-foot buffer. As we read the rules, there's also, we're not permitted to have those trees within 5 feet of the property line. So all those trees, and I'm assuming the shrubs as well, all have to be within the middle 15 feet. Be a cozy 15 feet across the 188 foot, but I think it will provide the screening that the rule obviously intends on having.
So the southern boundary line of lot 2 moved 10 feet to the north.
That is correct.
Any other change? Any other
Well,
changes?
Yes,
the
yeah, we had to meet that minimum 75-foot frontage of lot 2. The southerly line of lot 3 and the southerly line of lot 4 moved north the same amount, the same 10 feet.
Okay.
I kept the lots square. We'll call it square. Chris and I talked about something that wasn't square, but this just seemed to make more sense.
So
That was
basically,
one of
the north and south lines of lot 2 both shifted north 10 feet.
correct. The whole block just moved up. Yes.
Okay. Any other,
Yes. I had a couple more items on there. One of them was you guys had requested that we add the coverage calculations to the survey for the building
Right.
coverage. So if you can see that, that would be near the upper left corner of the survey map. And as you can see, we had 2 separate areas, one for the residential office commercial and the other one for the HDR. The Rock District has a 60% allowed coverage and the HDR is 50. We are providing 16% in the Rock and 37% in the HDR, both less than the maximum allowed coverage for a building in those respective districts.
okay. Anything else?
We also, yeah, it kind of related to that. I was asked to add the zoning district line. So again, in consultation with Chris, we were able to place that as best as we could. As you can see, that basically goes from the southwest corner of the DeWitt property, which is east or right of the existing lumber shed at Martin's Hardware, and runs diagonally southwesterly toward the Tilburg parcel. And that's
Right
the
through the hardware
line
store.
I'm sorry?
Right through the hardware store.
Right through the hardware store. And that separates the HDR from the Rock District. And
Okay.
the only other item I had on my list is the, I know I mentioned it last meeting, was that Eric Coda had asked us to relocate a pedestrian crossing ahead sign. Both the existing and the proposed are shown on the map. If you kind of look closely at the frontage, the left side of lot 2, you'll see the existing sign location, which is just left of the N in the bearing, the North 70527 West. And the proposed location is moved south about 50 feet. And I didn't know if you wanted that shown on this or if that was something you were going to write into your your findings at the end. I'm happy to do either, have it on the survey or not. I just didn't know how you guys wanted it. If
So-
you actually want me to point and annotate on the survey map that here's the sign and we need it moved.
Well, that probably makes sense. So people can look at one document and see everything that needs to be done rather than have to check out minutes and then look at a map that doesn't have all the information. So I think
Okay,
that makes
I will do that.
So I was, do you know where he's talking about? Can you tell us again where to see that reference?
Yep,
There.
it's the left side, the west side of lot number 2. You can see the sign, existing sign is near the northwest corner of lot 2. And not exactly sure where the driveway cut was going to be. We just wanted to get it away from the frontage of lot 2 so that it would not interfere with either the driveway or site distance coming in or out of the driveway. And Eric did not want it any closer to the West Pleasant Street intersection. So we just showed it moving to the south, basically opposite the north, just south of the northwest corner of the hardware store property corner.
Right, and so, and that, again, that sign says pedestrian crossing ahead.
It doesn't say it, it's the visual, it shows the people holding hands, walking across, or walking, I should say walking across, but yeah, that's the crosswalk ahead sign.
And the crosswalk is up by West Pleasant Street intersection.
Correct. It crosses Liberty Street and basically over toward the horse rink, rec club property.
So that sign has shifted to the south.
It will. that was a requirement of Eric's. So that is one of the requirements of this subdivision is to relocate that sign.
Okay.
And that's,
All right.
that was all I had on my punch list for items with you folks.
Is that covered? Anybody on the board have any questions before we open it up to the public?
No questions.
No.
Looks good.
Folks at remote, Josh, Tom, John, can't see you, so you gotta speak up. There we are.
No
John,
comment.
you
For,
okay?
no comment for me. Thank you.
John, you're okay? Okay. Anybody from the public wants to comment on this, or in attendance here wants to comment?
I have a
You
question.
identify yourself, please.
Robert Davenport.
All right, and where do you live?
I live right across the street.
I see. So you're a little bit north. You border with Brenda's property.
I do.
Okay.
Now, lot one is gonna remain hardware,
Yes,
so it's gonna be 3 housing lots.
correct.
So that includes houses, potential houses and garages. Correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, right now, this is just subdivision. That's right. So it's the lots meet.
Well, I know, but down in the corner with Lawson's thing, we were told it was gonna be houses and there was houses and garages, so I just wanted to kind of get a visual on how.
You see that box within the box of the lot? That's a building line, and that tells us where the builder could build. So anywhere in that littler box within the lot, like
Yeah.
they could build a house or garage.
They could put a house and a garage,
Yes.
separate, attached, whatever they.
Where, as long as it stays within that line, then they're within their setbacks.
Right.
So it's basically gonna be potentially, because when she told us, when I talked to Kathleen, she used to talk about 4. And
Right.
now I'm happy to see that one's remaining lumber or hardware store.
Yeah, it's
It'll be 3 houses.
a 4-lot subdivision, but 3 lots will be for residential development. And the existing store remains as the other lot. Any other questions or comments? Okay, any other questions or comments from the board before we move on? No, okay, I'll make a motion to approve the 4-lot subdivision of Clark Investment Properties with the revisions to the survey plat submitted by Kevin LaRose and discussed it here in the meeting.
Second.
Any debate about the motion? Okay, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Josh and John? John is yes. Josh? Josh is yes. Okay. So it's unanimous, Peggy?
Who seconded it? I'm sorry.
Well,
Tom did.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next
Kevin,
up,
I have a question. Who is voting? There should be 7 of us voting.
not Brenda though. Brenda was recusing.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, good reminder, Peggy, Brenda's recused on this because she's not joining, so
you.
there, so 6-0.
Got it.
I think it's 7.
No, Brenda,
Yeah. There's 4 of us here. There's 3 there. 5, 6, 7.
John, Josh,
Oh, Rob. Yeah.
Rob's here.
And Rob
Sorry.
voted, so.
Okay, that's fine.
But-
And that one Rob votes because Brenda's recused, and going forward, which of you fellas, Josh and Rob, had to sit on the sidelines last time. So whose turn is it to be a voting member when we have 8 people in attendance?
I think it's Rob's turn, right? Or you want me to take it, Rob?
I
Go
don't
ahead,
remember.
Josh. Josh, you were here. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
Okay, so Peggy, on this one, Josh will be the alternate, bring as a voting member on this one. All right, next up, Chris is here and Wade's here. All right, next up is permit number 21404, Chris Acker, located at Hewitt Road. Parcel number 06.02.45.01, requesting final approval for a 3-lot subdivision. And Wade here too?
Yep.
Okay, so Chris and Wade are here. Let's take the subdivision. You're also here for conditional use. We're going to do them separately. So the first item is the 3-lot subdivision. And Chris, are there changes to the plat since you were here last on the preliminary approval? Or that was a minor?
Same plat.
Did we have him do?
You can swear them.
All right, so we've got a 3-lot subdivision, north side of Hewitt Road. And your lots 1 and 2 are 9 acres more or less, and then lot 4 is 4 acres, and this is village mixed, right? So this is village mixed, and
Oh, you're getting good at this.
Almost too good.
Yeah, it's scary how good you are.
You got it.
all right, so okay, so on the subdivision itself, and folks will be doing the conditional use proposal after the subdivision. Any questions from the board for Chris regarding the subdivision plat submitted for final approval for the 3-lot subdivision?
No, we did a good job first time around.
Do we need to swear the applicant in?
Yeah, if we're gonna testify, do anybody have questions or?
I have a question.
All right, so Chris is gonna testify. You do solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence that you shall give before this development review board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. All right, Chris is sworn. Rob has a question for Chris.
Yeah, I had missed the initial previous meeting, and I was just curious about a LS plat on the subdivision. I did not see that.
Say that
Part of
again,
this
Rob?
package, a plat from a surveyor as for the subdivision.
That's what this is.
From a licensed land surveyor.
This is from Lincoln Applied Geology.
Have they surveyed it?
They have not surveyed.
Right,
No.
so-
Once the subdivision's approved, it'll go be surveyed.
So did you hear that, Rob?
Yeah,
So the plan is if the subdivision gets approved, they will then have it surveyed and a plat will be submitted within the 180 days like it needs to be.
okay. Just wanted to make sure because I know we had touched base on that previously and wanted to make sure that fall.
Thanks for bringing that up, Rob. Any other questions from the board? John, no? Anybody? Okay. And there weren't any updates, right? You said, Chris, from the first time around.
Not in the site plan, right? No changes to the site plan from the first round.
Subdivision
Just the numbering from the first meeting is the only difference on that.
on the lots.
Yes,
Yeah, we had something screwed up.
they're all ones, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Seeing no further questions from the board or from the members of the public on the subdivision, I'll make a motion to approve.
Question on the subdivision.
Okay. Didn't see you. Sorry there. Identify yourself.
I'm Steve O'Leary.
Okay.
On Hewitt Road.
Mm-hmm.
The previous meeting, there was a discussion about what the other lots are going to be used for. I wasn't aware of what the answer to that question was.
don't know if it's been determined yet. It's not required to be, but if you have an idea that you're thinking about, Chris, and you want to share it, go ahead.
Right now, there's no plans for the other 2 lots.
And that means they could be used for business or developed for housing or.
Yeah, I mean,
How does that work?
well, in every district, and this is village mixed, there are 2 categories of permissible uses. One is permitted use by right, and there's a list of, looks like close to 20 uses permitted, that are permitted by right in the village mixed district. And then there's another subcategory, or a different category called conditional uses, which are also identified. It looks like there's about another 10 or 12 there. And conditional uses are uses that may be allowable, but you have to come to the DRB for review and determination of whether it's allowable. If so, are there any conditions that the DRB would impose? So those are not automatic. There may be possibles, but permitted by right use means that it doesn't come, if it falls in that category, it doesn't come to the board, this board. They want to have a building for one of those permitted uses, they just go see Chris, and Chris issues the permits, assuming that the application meets all the other criteria. So it's only conditional uses that come to us for determination.
In other words, they can do anything legal on that land.
Except that under the new code, permitted uses need site plan review still. Some do there.
Yeah, it's an asterisk. So like it's he wants to put a residential house on lots 2 and 3, isn't that type of site plan?
I have one other question. I was made aware of something called Vermont Act 250.
Right.
And my understanding is that is to protect neighborhoods or areas from change that might be radical to it as it relates to businesses moving into an area. I understand that starts at 10-acre parcels.
Sometimes.
Can it start at less than that? Or?
Are we approved yet for 10 acres?
Yeah.
Oh, we got that approval? So we are
That's why
now,
you're here.
that's true. Well, no, I mean, they have to, we used to do both.
Right.
So now that towns that either had subdivision or zoning or neither, there was any commercial development bigger than 1 acre had to go to Act 250 as well. Now that Bristol has subdivision and zoning, the Act 250 threshold is 10 acres.
And what it looked like from what I read about Act 250 was that it's designed to protect against making some big changes to a neighborhood, such like the one that I live in, the road that we live on, which is predominantly a residential neighborhood. And it appears that once this subdivision is approved, pretty much whatever Chris wants to do, he can do with those lots within reason coming to you for approval, obviously. But it seems like there's some safeguards in Act 250 for residents in an area like this where things might be changing. I'm wondering if maybe it would be better to subdivide this in a way that would require Act 250 for improvements on lots.
We don't have the authority to do that, to require somebody to subdivide in such a way as to trigger Act 250 jurisdiction.
I see.
So as long as the lots meet the minimum lot sizes in the district, and they do, if Act 250 has jurisdiction, it has jurisdiction. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Here it does not, because the lots are all smaller than 10 acres, and this is commercial development for the use proposed. So, but we do have to keep in our minds separate, even though it's a little bit artificial there, right? This is just subdivision, it's lot lines on it's lines on a plat. Doesn't say anything about a proposed use, so, our inquiry, aside from the criteria listed for every subdivision, in our regulations is the, does it have frontage? Does it meet the minimum lot size? It's actually pretty mundane, pretty straightforward. So that's where we are on this one, but we can't say, no, you gotta have those 2 lots be 10 acres or more and shrink the third lot down just to trigger Act 250. We can't force that. And we have controls too through conditional use as well. And there are several performance standards throughout our bylaws: noise, lighting, things like that. Those apply to any use. So whether it's a permitted use or a conditional use. So it's a bit of, you should not draw the conclusion that Act 250 provides a lot of control, and once somebody gets a subdivision permit, the town's done. That's not accurate. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
You did touch on a little bit about noise. I was wondering if there was any way, any level of noise that was beyond that was acceptable. And then the other thing is, like I said, I have no idea what's going on with these lots, but road traffic. I mean,
Well,
is there a way to that has to be monitored? How many cars, trucks? It's like you put in a business that has 50 employees.
I'm going to ask you to hold on to that for the next discussion when we get into the proposed use, because this, what we're talking about now, is just the subdivision dividing this
So it's the same.
18 acre plus 4, 22 acre lot. But we're going to come to the proposed use, and then we can address that question. John, Josh, Rob, any questions? I don't see John, but he'll speak up if he has one. Good, John?
Oh, you have another neighbor here.
Oh, Bridget, do you have a question?
Yeah, really quick. My name's Bridget Nardiello, and Mr. Atkins' property surrounds me on the west and north. So I'm probably, yep, there I am.
Wait a second. So Bridget is an interested person because she's an adjoining landowner, as is Mr. Alario.
Steve is fine.
Steve. I thought it was Steve, and it said SS. I was going to guess Steve, and I didn't want to get her wrong. So Steve. We made that determination on Steve at the previous meeting, so that continues that he's an interested person, but Bridget is an interested person as well. Go ahead, Bridget.
Just a really quick question, although I'm assuming I know the answer, and I'll save my other questions for the next go round. But have you applied for an Act 250 permit, or do you need to?
He does not need to. But you can answer. The answer is
I don't need.
yeah, he has not. Before we became a 10-acre town, the answer would be he would have to apply for the commercial development of one of the parcels. Now that Bristol is a 10-acre town, that's a higher threshold. So it takes developments on less than 10 acres, commercial developments, out of the Act 250 jurisdiction. Any other questions from the public or the board before we move to vote?
I just want to make a quick assumption. I don't want to assume anything. So all my nitty gritty questions about like the business and the traffic and that's all for the second one, right?
Right. Coming soon to a DRB hearing near you in 5 minutes or less. Okay. I'll move that we approve the subdivision, proposed subdivision, subject to the condition, which is required anyway, that a survey plat be submitted in strict accordance with the June 21, 2021 drawing by Steve Revelle.
Ted seconded that, Peggy?
Who?
Ed,
Thank
Ted
you.
Desmond. All those in favor? Aye. Josh, yes. Rob?
Yeah.
Oh, no, Josh is voting. All those opposed? None. So unanimous there, Peggy.
Thank you.
All right, next up is, I lost my agenda. There it is. Also, now it's the Acker proposal for conditional use. This is permit number 21-302, Chris Acker, located on Hewitt Road, parcel number 06024501, requesting conditional use approval for a business yard. So, you're still sworn, Chris, so, for folks in the audience, including Steve, business yard is a listed conditional use in the village mix district. The village mix district is designed in our regs to offer a mix of residential, commercial, and light manufacturing opportunities within the village planning area. A business yard, a lot of towns call it a contractor's yard, but we use a little bit different term. It's a defined term. Business yard is a site used primarily to store and maintain construction, landscaping, or similar heavy equipment and other materials and facilities customarily required by a contractor in the building, landscaping, or construction-related trades or similar businesses, and where the majority of business activity takes place off-site. It may include, a business yard may include associated office space and/or enclosed areas for vehicle or equipment repair or maintenance. It does not include, business yard does not include regular or ongoing sale of equipment. So that's the type of use that is potentially allowable as a conditional use in the village mixed zone. And that's the use proposed by Mr. Acker. So Chris, do you want to take us through your conditional use application proposal?
Yeah, so last time you asked for, I know the curb cut, and I talked to Eric about that, and he didn't see any problems with that, and he was gonna, send it to the selectmen, and I don't know if it got approved last night.
it did get approved last evening.
So you've got 2 curb cuts on lot 1, Chris?
Yeah,
Okay. 30 foot.
well, actually, I think yeah, maybe.
Oh, proposed driveway with a 30-foot curb cut is what the,
Okay.
landscape
Eric
plan
change
says.
that to a wider,
I have to look at the notes.
okay, but that's
roughly, that's it, yeah.
the road foreman, folks from the public, the road foreman of the town, handles highway access permit applications. So commonly called curb cuts, driveways onto roads to make sure there's enough sight distance and not too close to other driveways, things like that. So that's something that needs to be done, but it's approval that comes from someplace other than some folks other than us. What else, Chris?
Okay, so, asked about the stormwater, Lincoln applied, did the calculations on that, and we are not required to have a stormwater permit.
Okay, you're below the threshold for impervious area.
Yes.
Okay.
Have less than 1 acre of hardscape on that plat? Is that accurate?
Yes, there's less than 1 acre.
Did you hear the answer on that, Josh?
Yes.
Okay, Chris.
You want the distances to the driveway and the building, and that's on the Lincoln side map.
All right, so you want to take us through those distances? So, because some folks might not have a big, you have the Lincoln applied map? So you can just call them out, that'll help for people following along, because even if it's, even on 11 and set by 17, it's hard to see sometimes. That way Peggy can get them too.
Maybe put them on
Which distances are we looking for?
there. What distances to the driveway, maybe you didn't put them on here. Do you see them on that?
Well, I see my landscape, the landscape plan, has, looks like the total lot is 410 feet of
Maybe
frontage.
you did not put those on there, so we still need that, but.
But I'm still not clear what distances you're thinking about, Chris.
Somebody from the board asked for the distances
Yeah, but what distances? From what to what?
from the building to the property line.
Oh. Yeah, right, for setback purposes.
It's substantial.
Yeah,
Yeah,
60.
So-
setback, so I was still trying.
What he added for setbacks, if you look on this map, there's a dashed line throughout that entire parcel.
Oh, I see it. Yep.
That,
He's got the envelope on that, on the lot one.
Oh, yeah, it is on here, so it's,
We've got it.
you see it on that one now?
Yep, no, we've got it now. Okay, so the envelope within which construction of buildings or structures can take place is noted on the Revell sketch and will be shown on the final subdivision plat as well. Anything else, Chris? Now you're gonna take us, why don't you discuss the building first and then the proposed use, how it's gonna work.
So the building would be an 85 by 137 building, be an office and a shop. For store and repair equipment. That dual accesses from the road, so it would be mostly a circular pattern for traffic to come in and out. And some of that was to reduce the backup alarm noise. There would be, we'd like to leave some of the trees along the road or plant new maple trees along the road for the landscaping, have the front area to be a grassed area.
So let's go back to the building. Tell us about the, what it's made out of. It's hard to tell what it's gonna look like from this black and white.
your color on screen.
What's the construction of the
It's gonna be a
exterior?
steel frame building.
Yeah, and what's the exterior walls made out of?
The exterior walls hopefully will be metal, but depending on the price and availability.
Okay, and how high is it to the ridge line?
Less than 35.
Okay. And
What's the purpose of the awning area in the back?
I think this is more or less just a generic picture of a steel building roughly that size. And that awning happens to be on it, but
Are you planning to have an awning?
no, it will not.
Okay, all right, so then you don't need to know what you would do with it. Thanks.
He's gonna remove it from the drawing.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
okay, and you're gonna have 3 overhead doors on the east and 1 overhead door on the west, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I assume those are windows we're seeing on the front and back, the rectangular, right? And how much of do you have a sense of what the configuration, what proportion is going to be office and what proportion is going to be mechanical or vehicle repair?
I mean, the majority of it's gonna be vehicle repair and storage. And there'll only be a small area that's the office.
Okay. Got a rough square footage estimate for the office?
Probably 1,000 square feet to 1,200.
All right, that range. And what's the footprint of I didn't do the math, 85 by 137. Not including the awning. 11,645. Does that sound about right, Chris?
It does.
So Peggy, 11,645 square foot footprint, plus or minus.
Okay.
Board have any other questions about the building itself before, and it's built on a pad, Chris, is that right?
Yes, it'll be a concrete pad.
And remind us what's gonna happen with you're gonna have sinks and toilet for the office, right?
Yes, and there will be an on-site septic,
All right,
and that septic area is on the plans.
Chris, I have a comment for you before we leave the drawings for the building.
go ahead.
I would recommend that you work with your designer to establish a clear parking area for people who are not contractors and kind of lay out a path to the front door, because it looks like your building entrances and at least on the east side may conflict with some of that parking layout and pedestrian travel on site.
Is this drawing accurate with this one door on the front? I thought you said there was gonna be two doors on the front.
This drawing is just a drawing
Yeah.
of a steel building that would look roughly like it.
Yeah, but you're gonna have two doors on the front.
Once I figure out if I can get a permit, I need to go to fire safety, with the state, and then actually get a building design that's gonna be able to work here.
Yeah, Chris, I guess that's the comment. When you get to that point, just take some time to plan out the pedestrian access and how the people who are using the building who are unfamiliar with the building can navigate the site without getting hit by a truck.
Yeah. Well, it's also not going to be open to the public, right, Chris? This is just a place for you
So
to
it's
work.
not for public access? Is this for private use only?
Yeah, it's for him to work on his own equipment.
Okay. My mistake.
And Josh, if you look at the landscape plan I've just brought up, there is a
Yep.
proposed walkway to the front entrance that doesn't go through the parking lot itself. So
Yep. Yeah, I just think that you're gonna drop your car on either side of the building and that may be in conflict with the doors, but I'm sure Chris is already thinking this through for his own property.
So the landscape, any other questions on the proposed building? And then we'll get around to the use. John?
Yeah, I know maybe this is premature given that this is just a simple concept drawing, but some of my issues, which will come up later, are around noise mitigation. And I don't know if you do your repairs and that sort of thing with the 3 garage doors open or any of the garage doors open, or if that were the case, if that were necessary for some reason, could those be oriented away from the closest residences? Right now they face east. Maybe there's a better way to face them so the noise goes off in that direction.
West? Put them on the other side? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, if that's where the noise will mostly emanate from, like an open repair garage, then how could the orientation of those doors affect in a positive way the noise mitigation for the neighbors? So that would suggest being open to putting those doors in maybe not an eastern direction if it's determined that it might be better in a different direction. You know what I mean? So the noise of the shop flows out that way.
Well, at a later time, there could be a house on one of the other lots on the other side, on the west side.
Well, they know what they're coming to at that point, I guess.
I think the housing I'm interested in exists now, and we could speculate about where housing might be in the future, and that's worth doing, I think, when considering a proposal like this. But we do have residents there now, and I think we ought to consider that it might be a good way to mitigate noise. So I don't know if my basic question is, if the building design changed a little bit, you're still going to have the east-west door openings. I don't know if there's a different orientation that would be better, but I'm asking about an openness to that, if that might be a condition that we come to.
I think we could switch the doors from the east to the west.
I think that's what he's asking.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, again, more or less just being open to have them open on the side that impacts, offers the most noise mitigation for the existing neighbors.
So flip it.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Any other questions about the building itself from the board? And then and then we're going to talk about the use. I figure we'll do the building first, and although that didn't.
Yeah, I do have a question. One of the design criteria that we're looking at is how a building fits into the character of the neighborhood. And while there are steel buildings in the commercial zone that's to the west of this location, the character of the buildings otherwise is residential. That's worth noting, I think, for us.
There is a sawmill or
Don't we have a substation too?
Substation.
Yeah, substation, and then we have Lathrop's Maple Supply on the south side, a little bit farther down,
Yeah, that's in a different zone. I'm just pointing out that there's two different zones here. That the commercial zone along 116 has buildings that I think are characterized as commercial, which is fine. But I think this building in this zone further east of 116 and the C1 zone over there, it is, to me, it represents a little bit of a pushing of that commercial architecture to the east into this village mixed zone.
It's a fair point, John. I will point out under the general criteria 355 number 2, conditional use not by its nature, scale, or conduct cause an undue adverse change to the character of the area as the area would exist if fully developed in accordance with the town plan. So we don't, under this new 355, we don't measure it, the change in character as a static snapshot now. We have to hypothesize or think about what the character would be like if the area was fully developed for the village mixed zone, which is obviously a mix of residential and commercial and light industrial.
I think that's right, and it's worth noting that the conditional uses in this zone, the more exceptional uses, the ones that need an exception, are towards the light industrial and this kind of use. That the village mixed zone emphasizes residential development.
Yeah, although strangely, light industry class 1 is permitted. And light industry class 2 and 3 are conditional use.
Yeah, I think if I remember the conversation around creating that shape for this zone and that parameters, that is trying to take in some of what does exist in the zone, because it has sort of naturally grown up as a mixed use area. And I think that the name itself, Village Mixed, kind of encompasses that, which is reasonable. I'm not saying a pro or con here. I'm just pointing out that to me, the zone really emphasizes the residential use first and foremost.
As it exists today, I think that's accurate.
And as the zone, yeah, I mean, and as projected into the future, the emphasis is clearly on the uses that are by right are the ones that are most encouraged, and those tend to be on a lighter nature, more residential in character.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Brenda.
A comment. If you look on the map that we were given, almost any of them, if you look immediately across the road, across Hewitt Road, to the people who own property exactly opposite, you will find that we have Tom Lathrop, and this is not a residential property, and Green Mountain Power, and that is not. So this does not move the commercial uses any further to the east. It simply is putting them across the road from existing commercial uses.
To the west.
Well, he's talking about moving things down the road to the east.
To the south. She's talking about to the south.
Well,
That is.
Towards one
He's
side,
up to the
towards
south,
one
that's
side.
right, but what
It would be helpful to rotate that map so it was properly oriented to the north.
that
Yeah,
this is moving things to the
Yes.
east.
yes.
And I'm saying it doesn't because already we have.
Yeah,
This is residential. That's
Tom
Tom's
like
house.
that?
Yeah, it's an orchard with his house. His mill would be further to the
But
west.
it's all the same. He could extend it.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Can't see Josh. Holler if you have something, Josh.
Is it the appropriate time to ask about lighting and
So I was gonna move to the use and that sort of thing next, and we can do that, and unless, well, let me ask the public if there are any questions about the building before we talk about the uses for what the building will be, the proposed use for the building. Steve?
To clarify what was just said regarding Tom Lathrop's property there and everything, if you've been down the street, you'll see that what is his commercial operations right on the corner. And next to that is his residence. And he's got all those apple trees out front. And then there's a small parcel that is owned by the electric company.
Right.
And then it's residential after that, all the way down.
Mhm.
So, you know, to characterize that the industrial is not being moved further, it is in fact being moved somewhat further because it's nearly directly in front of one of the houses, one of the residential lots, I should say. And if, you know, the lot in the middle were to be developed as non-residential, now you'd be creeping into the heart of what is all a residential portion of that road. So there is a creep occurring with what's going to happen in lot 1, and you know, the way the rest of it is zoned, it can continue.
Correct.
So just one point of clarity that's not on this map. There's a 1 acre parcel right here, basically where you see the words of Tom Lathrop that when it's surveyed, it'll actually come through because it was done probably before these site maps were done. About a year or so ago, Smith McLean purchased a 1 acre parcel.
Yeah.
That's directly across. So you have the Green Mountain Power parcel. There's another parcel almost mirroring it right here. And Smith McLean has been approved.
Yeah, we gave him conditional use
for a contractor's yard or a
business
yard. So the exact same use that's being occurred. So
Yeah.
just some clarity and some history of what else is approved that doesn't have to be on this map.
I remember
That's helpful to
that.
tell us that. Thank you, Chris.
I remember that, but I didn't have it placed in context with these, but I remember that application. They haven't broken ground or anything yet, right? Okay.
No, because they had to go through Act 250 because they did it prior to subdivision
Right.
regs when it was 1 acre. So.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions regarding the building from anyone? Okay, so let's move the discussion to focus on the proposed use, and that would include things like lighting and as well. And we have in mind Josh's, or was it John? Yeah, John's point about maybe it would make sense to flip the 3-bay function access to the building have the 3 bays on the west side rather than the east side because to mitigate any noise for the existing homes to the east of the property. That would be Bridget's and Steve's B&B. Chris, want to explain what you have in mind for the use of the building, please?
The use of the building will be for repairing equipment, office space, and storage of equipment.
So for the folks that aren't familiar, can you explain what your business is?
We have trucks and equipment.
Yeah, right. What do you do?
We do excavating, we haul wood chips.
So what kind of equipment do you have?
Dozers and excavators and loaders.
And what kind of trucks?
We have trailer trucks and dump trucks.
How many trucks are in your fleet?
Right now, I think it's 5.
And what about pieces of heavy equipment like, say, dozers or backhoes?
Probably 30 or 40.
And would this basically be headquarters for them, transitioning from job to job and for maintenance and that sort of thing? They'd all be stockpiled here?
No, they're never all at the shop. They are usually on a job site somewhere or in a gravel pit somewhere.
So do you have a sense of how many vehicles of that nature might be on the property at once?
Right now, at my shop at home, there's probably less than 10 in the yard.
Chris, do you have a sense of how many would be inside and how many would be outside here?
Probably there would, with pickups and dump trucks, there would probably be, 8 or 10 outside, and there would be some inside.
And would you use the inside only for when you're working on a truck or a piece of equipment, or would you store vehicles and equipment in there?
I think it would be both.
It'd be both, okay.
And so would trucks and equipment then deploy on a day-to-day basis to and from this yard? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the answer.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So does that imply you need to warm up this kind of equipment in the morning before you move it, that sort of thing?
Yes.
So for like a large dump truck, sort of your standard gravel truck, is that sitting idle for what, a half an hour or something before you head out?
Well, this time of year, it's not that long. It's just a few minutes, but when it's 20 below, it probably would be a half an hour.
So it's conceivable that several trucks could be idling at once?
Sure, that's very possible.
Any other, are you gonna have lifts? You planning to have lifts inside to work on equipment, or?
I don't know. I haven't got that far with what was going on there.
Okay. Any other, as somebody had mentioned lighting, can you just tell us what you've got proposed for lighting?
We would have a light on the sign and a light on the entrances of the building.
You mean the pedestrian entrance or the overhead doors?
It'd be nice to have one for both places. And I think they could be pointed down so it wouldn't be obtrusive to.
I think they would be required to be pointed down according to the zoning regulations. So
Would the parking lot be lit?
No, I don't know. The parking lot wouldn't be lit.
That was the point of my question. Do you have plans to light the site? And I guess what were your plans to mitigate site intrusion off property?
Is the lighting off property where you can see it? I think this.
Are you going to keep the light on the property if you're going to light the site? It sounds like you're telling me that you're not going to light the site at all.
No, just be the building and the sign.
Okay.
And are you proposing fencing, Chris, to fence off the parking areas from, or is it?
Right now, I'm not proposing any fence.
So Chris, if guys came in to warm up a truck in the wintertime when it was still dark in the morning, they wouldn't need lights? They would just, work with the ambient light, or how would that? No light in the parking lot?
As of right now, no light in the parking lot.
Okay.
But you would have a road sign, business sign out by the road.
Yeah.
All right, and Chris, whatever we tell you the parameters for, you'd have to meet the requirements of the bylaws for signs.
That would be a separate permit on the sign permit. So.
Right. And there's pretty specific guidelines about how big it can be and so forth. Any other questions from the board regarding the proposed use of the building in the yard as a business yard for Chris's contractor's excavating business?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have a dumpster area not on the site plan? Construction or otherwise?
So we couldn't hear you, Josh.
You have a dumpster location planned on site, construction or otherwise?
Yeah, the dumpster would be in the back of the building away from the road.
Independent of the building?
The dumpster, yeah, would be independent of the building.
But I think we may need an enclosure around that.
We dealt with that over on Stony Hill for conditional use, right? Yeah.
Chris, will you have any kind of a fuel supply here, a tank and ability to fill up trucks, or
Yes,
is it underground tank or
no, be above ground tank.
above ground and pump? And that would be, where would that be located?
I don't know. I don't know.
So he's gonna.
Probably towards the back of the building.
So you will have to get site plan approval when he gets to that
Right.
point. So that'll be one thing.
Those, both the dumpster and dumpster enclosure and this fuel all should be on the site plan. Probably also, if you're gonna have any parking spaces that are gonna be separate parking spaces and not trucks, and that should all be marked on there as well.
Yeah, dedicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's site plan.
Site
And
plan.
we're not, you're not there yet. Josh, John, any other questions for Chris before we
Yes.
go ahead?
So Chris, just to go back to lighting and glare, section 752, you would commit to adhering to all of those requirements, down lighting, keeping the light on the property, lights not more than 15 feet tall, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Good, because you, of course.
That's the code.
And would you be open? I mean, we had a proposal from the Stony Hill commercial development where I think they really set the bar very high and in the right place, I think, for exterior lighting that is of the right color temperature and dims itself at night and is basically motion activated and dims slowly rather than just flashing off and on, that sort of thing. According to the regs, those things are sort of optional measures, I think they call it, and they do call it that. And I just wondered if you're receptive to that sort of thing as a way of mitigating whatever light might be on the property that comes off. I mean, I imagine if you have a bunch of expensive equipment sitting there, you might want some yard lighting at night, right?
Yeah, but I would be open to looking into that, and I want to go with energy saving lights, and so if we can find a way to find, something that'll work for both purposes.
Right. I think what we're trying to get away from is the big, big yard lights or barn lights or whatever you want to call them that are on people's buildings that just shine light in every direction.
Those metal halide 1980s.
And they're actually prohibited, John, in Part 5. That's the wall pack light that we talk about.
Well, wall pack lights, those are like the double-headed floodlights. But then there's like the big, gas argon light or whatever that's just sort of general area, old style. Throw the light in every direction, including towards space. Like that sort of thing is not to be encouraged.
And I'll point out, since we're talking about it now, although we're not considering site plan at this time, section 394 discusses site plan review criteria, and lighting exterior lighting is one of the topics that we pay attention to, and the board may impose appropriate conditions and safeguard with respect to the adequacy of several things, but one of those is exterior lighting. So we have conditioning authority to address exactly the kind of concerns that John's asking Chris about now. And he's right, Stony Hill folks did set a really nice height. They did a really great job with the lighting, more into the village, but the former village, but they really came up with a lighting package design protocol that we all thought was really, really well done. We get to Hold them.
I have another question about hours of operation. Chris, on here you say 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Is that 7 days a week?
No, but we do emergency work, we do snow plowing, we do that, so there is gonna be times that we are gonna be there, it's not always gonna be a set schedule, is what I should say.
Right. Could we get a number? I don't need it now, but in future on the parking lot expanse, like the whole paved or packed area, not just like workers park their cars there, but like I presume it's going to be at least a dirt packed lot for parking these trucks and such. I'm just wondering what that full expanse is.
Parking lot area is going to be gravel.
Yeah.
Parking lot area will be gravel, John.
Yeah, I'm just interested in the sort of what's the full open extent, the expanse of the created open space.
It's shown on that plan there. I don't know that we have square feet.
It's shown.
Back here.
Right there.
It's shown in this sense that it's outlined, but I don't see a quantification of it.
That's right. You're right. It doesn't say how many acres it is.
So I'd like a quantification, please. Landscaping, 4 trees, Chris, I'm underwhelmed. Maybe there's something more you could consider along those lines.
What's there now, Chris? Are these 4 trees you show in the landscape plan existing, or those?
We could leave some of the ones that were there, or we could plant the ones that.
What's there now?
What's there
describe
now?
it? Yeah.
There's some trees and there's some brush in that area.
It's sort of like fourth growth, nothing shrubby, right?
Yeah, parts of it are. There is some nice maples in there in places too.
And landscaping would be also is one of the areas or one of the criteria that we have conditioning authority over with respect to site plan review. So that's when you get ready for that, he's got to do it right as site plan because it's the conditional use. So that's something we can take up in detail at the site plan review.
Yep, and I'll point out that in that section it says applicant shall demonstrate. So I think that it's an affirmative opportunity for you, Chris, to.
What are you looking at, John?
I'm looking at section 356, item number 3. Applicant shall demonstrate that they have incorporated landscaping features, trees, shrub, fences, walls, gardens, open space, etc., into a design to reduce any impacts their use of the property might have on neighboring properties. So I think it has to be a forethought, not an afterthought.
Just from Chris's description earlier, the green space, the only green space that you see on this, you did say that was going to be lawn, correct?
That's lawn, yeah. In the front.
Yeah, so that's the intent, John, was to actually create an open green lawn environment with the 4 maples or 4 trees there, is what the applicant's vision was for that.
That's cool, but landscaping is not just on one side. I mean, you have to think about where the neighbors are, and they're on other sides too.
So the other sides of that are all trees and it's all wooded. With very.
How far is the nearest home from the edge of this property?
From the edge of that property, it's going to be 500 feet roughly.
The nearest home would be Bridget's, probably, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, across the street.
Across the street would be closer.
Yeah. So I'm just urging you to not do the least possible, Chris.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, John, about 356. I'm into the sort of preamble of 356. that says, board may make such additional requirements as it deems necessary with respect to the specific standards regarding site plan review in Articles 4 and 8 of these regulations. I think it's okay to, under conditional use, when there's going to be site plan, to take up those more specific details later.
I'm just sort of planting some flags for that later.
And I hear you, and I think that's
I figure better to raise these now so Chris and his team can think about them and come back to us affirmatively than wait till the next meeting and then register these issues.
That's a good point.
no, that's prudent.
And when it comes to landscaping, it's not optional. The applicant shall demonstrate.
Yep. And if we, as a board, find the landscaping plan lacking in some regard, we have the power to enhance it by condition. Josh, any further questions, or John?
Yeah, Chris Purley, is this not in the village planning area? I'm sorry, I can't seem to put my eyes on the map here, but is this not within the village planning area?
It is.
So it is in an overlay district.
No.
Is
To
the
offer a
village-
mix in the section on village mix, John, it says to extend Bristol's village to the west and south and to offer a mix of residential, commercial, and light manufacturing opportunities within the village planning area. So that's in the preamble of village mix.
So I'm assuming that I could go online and look. I don't know. I don't have the map right here. Is this within the boundaries of the village planning area, this lot?
Yes.
Yes, it is. All right. So, Chris, I think you need to amend something because I can't find it right here, but in your application you said I don't know, is the village planning area, is that an overlay area?
Now, the two overlay areas that we have in our town are the flood hazard area and the downtown design review overlay.
Okay.
So here's, John, just for your clarity, the map that you have on the screen. Here's Hewitt Road. This is the parcel we're talking about.
Show me Hewitt again. I missed your
Hewitt
cursor.
Road is right here.
Got it. Yeah.
This red and yellow block dash line, that's the village planning area.
The boundary.
Yeah, everything on the inside of it, on the outside is the town. I'll zoom out just so you can see it a little better. But I want to show
So
you
everything east of that line is within the village planning. Everything west towards 116 is not in village planning.
that is correct.
In this parcel, can you show us roughly where it is on this map?
Right here in this corner, in the south.
Got it. Yep.
So my question is really for fellow board members and Chris. Do we have any, special obligations or considerations to make because it's within the village planning area?
I believe we discussed that in the regs.
Well, it's a good question. I came up blank. I gotta confess. So I'm looking through my table of contents right now because nothing jumped to mind from my previous review of the regs, but that doesn't mean it's not there because these are.
When the village planning area was written into the regs some years ago now, and this is an anecdotal memory, and I haven't read up on it or anything, nor have I gone through the current regs to see how it deals with this village planning area. But so speaking generally, the purpose was to really emphasize the future growth of the village along the lines of its current walkable sort of village, identifiable village context. So even though we're on the edge of the village planning area here, right in the corner of it, that just might be something to keep in mind.
Is it
The village planning area was created for the town plan.
Yeah, that's what I was
And
just
it's
gonna
not
ask.
incorporated into the regs other than it's referenced in a few of the objectives of the different zones.
Hmm.
And
That in itself is odd.
It's not as clear as it should be, really.
Yeah.
Well, it's not part of the original village.
Right.
It's something they decided they needed more space to do commercial type
Right,
things.
to
So they
expand.
Yeah.
said, well, we'll call this village whatever, because
Like-
there's little bits of it elsewhere, I think, besides here.
to the north as well, and the village planning area is not in it as well. And
Right, is it to expand
It just tells you what you can do there. That's
sort of that compact village core as
But
John.
it doesn't fundamentally
Same.
change the zoning in any way. It's not like an overlay zone where it gives you some additional criteria or requirements. So
Well-
John makes a good point, but I don't know what you do with it.
Yeah,
For my purposes, I think we could each do with it as we saw fit if we're not clearly directed. But for me, in recalling the conversation around creating something called the Village Planning District and putting a line on the map, the zoning map, showing it, was to emphasize, to preserve for future development, the expansion of the current fabric of the village. Sort of a
and-
walkable, densely packed thing.
I remember it the same way you do, John. That's absolutely correct, except that especially here, when it gets out pretty far from the core pedestrian area and without any specific suggestion, I don't know what it says to me.
So from having sat on the board
Yeah.
when we created that
Yeah.
and having written zoning after it was created using this, its emphasis was not just on residential growth, but also on commercial and light industrial as well, i.e. the business park, where the fire station is, the Bristol Works location, and actually this area of Hewitt Road, I believe were called out in the plan at the time. So we incorporate, and then we use that document to create the zones and the uses that were appropriate for those zones to the best we can.
yeah.
Okay.
So does that help at all?
Yeah, I just don't know whether we're mandated to do anything in particular
No,
with
I think,
respect to the.
yeah, I think, I've gone through the table of contents while we're talking here, and I don't see anything particular in the regulations themselves, which is not unheard of. The bylaws are designed to implement the town plan. To some extent, there's no requirement that the bylaws do everything that's in the town plan.
And also, at some point, the zoning boards, we kept getting requests for things to happen that couldn't. People to set up light industrial things or like this business activity, and there was no zone for it. And we actually wrote to the planning commission, please find space somewhere where we can approve these uses, which are obvious uses. They were good uses. They won't, not too destructive, but there was no place to
Yeah.
put them.
Well, yeah, I remember that as well. And I think it occurs to me, John's comment is a good one to think about. And when I think about it with respect to this proposed use in walkability, now this is not like the businesses proposed for the Stony Hill property where there's going to be many employees and they'll be hopefully walking to work. This is a site that Chris and his Wade, their other employees will go to and leave from to specifically work on equipment. So we won't have pedestrians, members of the public going to the business to shop or anything like that. It's a limited access site from that point of view.
Doesn't it say somewhere that, for example, some activities like extraction are precluded from the village planning area, I think?
Maybe.
Yes, in the plan it does, and I think we call out extraction in the zoning, it's prohibited as well.
Yeah.
In the village planning area or in
In
individual
certain
zones? I think it's in the zoning, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in section 605.
Thank you.
Where it's precluded.
Right.
But it's not listed as a use in this zone anyway, so it's not really.
No, but I think the message I take from this being inside the village planning area is that is again one that sort of emphasizes that this zone is its highest and best uses for future expansion of the village fabric. I'm not saying that rules out anything in this particular application. I'm just saying that that's general guidance, I think, from having the village planning area.
Yep.
And it does influence my thinking a little bit.
Yep.
And you're right, it does specifically say that extraction is not permitted in the village planning area. But that's not relevant to this, but it does say
it's
that.
not relevant here, but
You would have thought they would have just said, identify the zones.
Zones, yeah. It's a little imperfect.
The problem is that there's towns that are crossed.
Yeah.
In the
Chris, I have another question for you, if I may.
Early.
Will you be stockpiling any materials here? Let's say you have loads from a job, picking up, digging a hole somewhere. Or do you envision stockpiling materials on this site?
Don't plan on stockpiling stuff. Could you hear that, John?
No, I didn't.
The answer was no.
Thank you.
Well, here's something interesting. Section 730, storage of vehicles in districts within the village planning area. In the primarily residential districts within the village planning area, friends, high density residential and village residential, unregistered motor vehicles and cars used for drag or stock car racing must be stored in an enclosed garage. So there's
But it's not mixed use, though.
No, I know. I'm just saying
They do
that,
have some things.
that there are spots here and there within our regs that actually do make substantive use of the village planning area because apparently it cuts across certain districts. Okay, any other questions, John, at the moment?
Chris, I know you
Thank you.
don't need more work. Could you sometime tell us any all the places the village planning area has specific requirements? It'd be handy for you to know and be handy for us to know too, because we are educating ourselves to this as we go. So
Absolutely.
Josh, any questions for applicant? Okay, any other questions from the board? Members of the public, do you have any questions or comments regarding the proposed business yard use, the proposed conditional use? Yes, ma'am. Identify yourself.
Jill Mackler.
So you're the property across the road?
Yes.
Okay, so
I am a untechnically very interested party.
well, the standard is immediate neighborhood. So you qualify. You're an interested party.
Excellent. I just have a couple of comments. I'm concerned about noise, the amount of traffic, and that's for safety reasons, as well as that contributes to noise. And most of all, I am very concerned about what this does to the existing feel of this neighborhood. Right now, I stand in my front lawn, and if I just look slightly to my left, I see lots of trees. Instead of seeing lots of trees, because it's not that far down the street from me, I'll see cuts where trucks, etc., will be going in and out. So it does change for me the view of the neighborhood, but more important than that, it increases traffic. And it makes it much noisier.
Are you talking about engine noise from vehicles, Jill, or something else?
Well, I'm talking about mostly the engine noise from vehicles, but also the fact that just in general, if there's increased traffic on the road, that generates sound, which is easier.
Do you have any estimate, Chris, of how many vehicle trips per day in and out of the property you expect to have? I mean, it's not a McDonald's drive-through, but I don't have a sense of how much going and coming you anticipate. That would help if we had some context there.
And I think first thing in the morning, there's gonna be 5 or 6 vehicles coming in and probably 5 or 6 vehicles leaving shortly after. During the day, there probably won't be much at all. Maybe a few delivery vehicles. And then, later in the day, there'll be the same thing, the vehicles coming back there.
So 5 or 6 in the morning, 5 or 6 in the afternoon, and
That's
a couple of days, so maybe 15 vehicle trips a day. Does that sound
That'd be a good guess, probably.
estimate?
It's not particularly high.
Any other questions or comments, Jill? I confirm she's interested. She's in the meeting.
No, I think that's it.
Just a comment, Chris. Would you expect most of your vehicles to go and come from Route 7? Or would you expect it to go,
Route 116?
oh, sorry, Route 116, or would you expect them to be going east instead?
They would be coming from 116.
So they will mostly be going in front of your property, I don't think. From what he said.
Yeah, that's true. That would not be in front of my property. It doesn't mean that it's
No, I
out of sight or
don't-
out of sound.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Anybody in attendance here? Anybody online? I'm sorry,
Steve has.
Steve?
I'll wait if someone else wants to turn, but.
I don't.
Bridget wanted to say anything.
Bridget's got her hand up. You're on, Bridget.
Hey, thank you. I think I'm just going to speak really briefly to kind of the integrity of the neighborhood. I run every day on the road and I walk the dog every day on the road. And the way it is now, I think I'm pretty lucky because, there's a fair amount of very large logging trucks that go down the road every single day, many times a day. And today, when I was running, there was a woman pushing a stroller, and on the corner across from Mainly Metals, it was kind of a sketchy moment there. So when I'm speaking on behalf of, the steward of the neighborhood, and it's definitely just going to get a little rougher, I think, with larger trucks and trucks idling. And so, yeah, I have concerns about that. I don't have any specific questions for Mr. Atkins, and I know that everybody gets to do their thing. I just hope we can move forward, thinking about the greater vision and taking care of each other. The road is not like a neighborhood walking road. I run on it because I have to keep my sanity, not because it's safe. It would be great if it was actually safe. All right, I just wanted to make sure I said something. You guys are answering all the questions that I have written down, though. So thank you.
Remember with trepidation and maybe a little bit of a lot of testimony in that regard related to the proposed Lathrop gravel pit 15 years or so ago when there was a lot of traffic on Hewitt Road, and we heard a lot of testimony both ways on the very point you're making. Any other questions or comments from Steve?
Yeah, I was looking over Chris's application, and in the section 353, where it talks about the uses of the buildings. I was part of the select board meeting last night, and they mentioned that there would be Chris's son's business there, which is a rubbish hauling business. Is that true, or is that something that they were not, that they were misinformed about?
I mean, he has trucks and that could possibly happen. He could be working out of that same shop.
And would there be, so there, that would increase the number of trucks beyond what you were saying as far as your business?
No, actually, it really wouldn't. He just has a couple trucks.
And then those trucks would be parked there at night, I assume?
I don't even know that. We haven't even got that far with all this yet.
That's,
Well, for the application, Chris, it's a good comment and question, Steve. That's news to me. Your proposal, the application before us is for a contractor's yard for your excavating business, right?
That's what I'm going for right now.
Right, so if you wanted to do something with, or Wade wanted to do something on site with his business that was different than that, you'd have to either seek an amendment to the conditional use permit. I guess that's probably the way to do it, but just to be clear for Steve, what's before us now and what any approval if forthcoming would be for is for the contractors, the business yard for the Chris Acker's excavating business.
It's the contractor's yard. It doesn't have to be his business, right? I mean,
Well,
he could sell his business, or as long as it's a contractor's yard, it's
business yard.
business yard. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
but what business yard? Now it's his, and what he's telling us about is his trucks, his trips.
Well, he's going to tell us about whatever they intend to do, but I
Right.
don't think it's fair to say it can only be his particular business as long as it's a contractor's yard and it's consistent with the testimony.
Well, that's what I'm trying to clarify. And
Okay.
I'm hearing and understood that the proposal had to do with Chris's excavating business and the trucks he mentioned and the equipment he mentioned were all in relation to that business. So if there's additional equipment that's going to be there, we need to know about it. If it's something beyond Acker excavating, whatever we call it.
Right, to me, the turning point is if the storage and handling of trash was occurring on that property, not a visitation by his son's vehicle.
I agree.
I think also there would be different hours for.
Right.
Yeah, trash is picked up on my road at 7 o'clock in the morning, so it leaves somewhere a lot earlier than
Right,
that.
so that's not before us, and if there's an approval, the approval would be tailored to what's before us, and if something else was desired, then the appropriate thing to do would be to seek an amendment.
I agree.
So thanks, Steve, that was a new point of information.
I have a comment regarding the operating hours also.
Go ahead.
Speaking for most people in the neighborhood, I know that they're not awake generally at 6 in the morning. And my business, which is pretty much my wife and I's sole source of income, has guests staying there. Not many, but a few. And most of them would not appreciate being woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning by the hum of a diesel engine or several diesel engines. So that could potentially impact the way people feel about staying with us. And if it has a reputation for not being the kind of place that people want to stay because it's too noisy, that directly impacts my so I'm not averse to having a business down the road, but something that starts at 6 o'clock in the morning, or perhaps even earlier if it's a snowy day. I'm not exactly sure how the snow thing works. There's a lot of salt that has to be spread. Is that going to be kept in the yard as well, or how does that work? But be that as it may, that's another question, the 6 a.m. Operating hours is something that is a concern of mine.
Chris points out, Steve, we do have a specific standard in the regs regarding hours of operation. 754. Hours of operation should be limited to standards for similar enterprises, so you should treat like things alike. But then it goes on to say hours of operation are generally encouraged to begin not earlier than 6 a.m. and end by 9 p.m. The DRB may expand these hours to accommodate specific types of businesses and to allow for additional shifts within the village mix or commercial districts. So that's the extent of what hours of operation. Chris, remind me, I've already forgotten, what did you say for your hours?
Well, I think it said 6 to 7, I believe.
6 a.m. to 7 p.m. is what my notes say. Okay. Any, Steve, any other questions or comments?
Were you going to review any of the other sections of Chris's application, or that's all?
We're doing question and answer now.
Okay. So that would include like what's in section 355 and 356.
Yeah. Right.
So I do have a couple of comments about section 355. I understand that talks about traffic impact, but the other aspect of running trucks on the road is that the condition of the road right now is not the best. There's quite a few potholes on it, and I know we're kind of at the end of the line in town, and sometimes the resources may not make it down to us, but needless to say, regardless of that, I should say that the road is not in very good shape, and it would be a concern of mine to have heavy equipment rolling over it if it's not going to be maintained in any better shape than it is right now. I have to add to that the fact that it's a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone, and you can come and stand out in front of my house sometime and see what's going on there.
It's universally obeyed?
I obey it.
Does anybody obey it?
Well, I do, and when I do that, generally I have some guy behind me who's pretty upset with me until I turn off into my driveway. My point being that, again, I know we're not technically in the village, and I don't think, at least the way I understand it, the town police are not responsible for enforcing the speed limit down there. But that's pretty cold comfort for me because the problem does not go away. So a combination of roads that are not in a road that isn't in good shape, and people who refuse to obey the speed limit. If it's some of those trucks that are refusing to obey the speed limit, which I have noted at times, that is a danger factor. As a matter of fact, I was in a car accident pulling out of my driveway a year and a half or so. There's a kid on a motorcycle, unregistered motorcycle, comes screaming down the road and whacked right into the side of my car. And he totaled his bike. Long story short, had no insurance, and it was a disaster. And you know, had he been obeying the speed limit, there would have been no accident. I'm certain of that. But at any rate, so I am concerned about the road and increased traffic on it. And as far as truck traffic goes, and the direction that it's traveling in, if it's an agreement that trucks will only travel in one direction, and that being to 116, well, that's all well and good, but I've seen plenty of trucks traveling in the opposite direction. And, you know, if you have to get to a part of town and it's quicker to cut cut up there and go up South Street, well, it's, you know, somebody may take a shortcut.
Yeah.
So I don't feel comfortable with just, you know, an assertion that there's not going to be that kind of.
Yeah, I didn't take Chris to be saying that. I interpreted the comment as being a reference to primarily traffic's going to go towards 116, not a commitment that no trucks would ever go east.
And I have trailer trucks now that haul out of Lathrop's Mill, so they haul in there 2-3 times a day, as it is now, so I need to be able to travel through there.
I understand that, and if there's no other way, I'd be ridiculous to object. That's for sure. I do know that a lot of trucks that are carrying wood products through there spill a lot of that stuff from time to time, and that doesn't get cleaned up on anybody. We have to send it to just decompose before that stuff goes away. It's routine that I
wood chips,
shovel chips off my driveway, and the intersection of Lover's Lane and Hewitt Road. There's been a pile of bark there and stuff. A month and a half, it's still there. You know, I don't know, maybe the people down at that end of the street really don't care, but I have a business that I ask people to pay to stay in my house. And I don't feel that great about them driving down the street and seeing debris on the street. I'm not saying that that's your fault, Chris. I'm just in general saying that truck traffic is what produces that kind of thing. I've never seen any wood chips or logs flying off of this car. So that's a concern of mine. I think that's pretty much about it.
Okay. Anybody else with any questions for Chris? Seeing none, okay, let's proceed to take a look at and some of this we've already dealt with, but board, we're gonna look at, start with 355, general review criteria. First up is conditional use shall not overburden or exhaust existing or planned municipal facilities or services. Haven't heard anything that suggests there's an issue there. Does anybody feel differently? No. Okay, number 2, character of the area. Conditional use may not, by its nature, scale, or conduct, cause an undue adverse change to the character of the area as the area would exist if fully developed in accordance with the town plan. To that end, conditional use shall meet the dimensional setback requirements for the districts, sign standards indicated in Article 7, and any other performance standards specified in these regulations. Yeah, which goes without saying. Does keeping in mind that first sentence as written, as the area would exist if fully developed in accordance with the town plan, does anybody have concerns about subsection 2?
I do.
Yeah, you want to?
I don't want to go back over because I think I stated them pretty adequately earlier. But to me, this is inside the village planning area. This is a zone that, while it allows conditional uses for a business yard, it's clearly emphasizes the desirability of residential development, while it recognizes, obviously by the name village mixed, some mixed use. But I am, I think protective of existing uses, neighbors, residential uses, and mindful of that the town has put that area inside the village planning area for the future expansion of the compact village fabric. So that's just something on my mind. I'm not saying it's a stopper, but it is on my mind.
Thanks for summarizing your previous point. Go ahead, Tom.
No, I was just going to ask do you not agree with the mixed zoning? Would any conditional use be here, work for you here, or you just feel like it should really be residential?
I'm just really comparing it to this proposed use. I haven't given it a thought like any possible mixed use. But no, I generally support mixed use. And I think for me, I want to be mindful of this character of the area item, because we are in a little bit of a margin here. Like to the west, you have a commercial zone that allows some heavier light manufacturing. That exists now in that zone, and there's new stuff. To the east, you have really almost fully residential, and we're just on the margin here. So I just want to be sensitive to that character of the area argument. I'm not 100% satisfied that this fits the character of the area, but it is a mixed use zone, and it is on the edge of the village planning area. So I'm just being mindful of that.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. I guess my 2 cents on it is, I think that's accurate as to the current state of affairs. I think we're supposed to look broader than that, or anticipate future development. And with this particular use, I don't see it as causing an undue adverse change in the character of the area, as the area would exist if fully developed in accordance with the town plan, which is a mix of residential, light industrial, and I think it's a commercial. So it's always tough at the edge, and it's always tough when it does change. It is different from the residential areas around it. On the other hand, this is an area where the town plan says such development should occur. So, there's a tension there. But the standard is undue adverse change to the character of the area if the area was fully developed. And from my perspective, I don't see that it transgresses that standard.
I come down right where you do, Kevin. The problem is I get what John's saying, but the town plan and the regs don't turn this into a residential zone. It's a mixed zone. So this is on the edge a little bit, but it's well within the zoning and not an undue impact.
And it's not on Hewitt Road, but historically, there's been a very large sawmill in that area, and just around the corner. They're really between 2 Lathrop sawmills.
Any other comments on subsection 2, character of the area, from the board?
That's right.
Rob, no? Okay, number 3 is traffic impacts. The estimated traffic generated by conditional use shall not exhaust or exceed the capacity of the road to accept increased traffic unless the applicant agrees to a condition requiring the applicant to upgrade the road. Any concerns or comments about subsection 3?
Based on his testimony of 15 trips a day, I don't think it exhausts or exceeds the capacity of the road, nor would it be appropriate for us to request any road improvement.
So, Chris, you're not, when you've got a tandem dump truck, right? Yeah. So, or 2. So, would that truck be loaded with aggregate when it's going and coming from your property?
Most of the time, no.
Yeah. But it hauls a lowboy trailer with a backhoe on it or something like that?
It does, yeah. So it could come back to that.
Yeah.
Chris, does any of your equipment exceed the road standards for weight limits?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, it's not, it's with a permit, we can go up to 90,000 on that road.
That's a permit you get from the town?
From the town,
Yeah.
yes.
Do you have one now for your current location?
I do.
Who gives you that? Is that select board or the road foreman or?
Select board.
So without the 90,000 pound weight limit permit, do you know what the weight limit is?
I assume it's probably 24,000,
All right, so you would need to,
just like most town roads are.
yeah, for your, I wonder with this road, because so much heavy traffic goes down with the log trucks, maybe they've got their heavy weight permits, I don't know. when you're hauling, say, an excavator with the low boy, would you, in the dump truck, would you need, would you be above 24,000 pounds?
Yes.
All right, so you've got to get a heavyweight permit from the town for this location.
Yeah, but we have to get that go anyways in the town.
So it follows the vehicle?
Follows the vehicle.
Okay, it's not related to the site.
And it's based on one vehicle or a fleet of vehicles, the permit is.
Okay, so you've already got your heavyweight permit for your fleet.
Correct.
Okay. And do you need anything you don't need anything from the state for 116, or do you?
I mean, there's lots of permits.
For weight?
And registration, for whatever weight you're hauling, you have to, get permits.
So that you have to get state permits from AOT and a permit from the town for the town roads?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions regarding subsection 3? Or comments? Okay, subsection 4, compliance with regulation. This goes without saying, but must comply with regulations in effect at the time of the submission of the application. So you've got to comply with the town regs, Chris.
This Chris will take care of that.
Yeah. Number 5, renewable energy resources. Conditional use shall not excessively inhibit or restrict access to the use of renewable natural resources, including but not necessarily limited to water and sunlight for energy generation. So does anybody have a concern or comment regarding subsection 5? Okay. Moving on to the specific review criteria, site specific. Section 356. In addition to any conditions stemming from its review of the general criteria in 355, the DRB may make such additional requirements as it deems necessary with respect to the specific standards regarding site plan review in Articles 4 through 8 of these regulations, which are 4 is the required regulations, 5 is the general regulations, 6 are the conditions attached to specific uses, 7 is design and performance standards, and 8 is flood hazard. So site plan review, with respect to the specific standards regarding site plan review in Articles 4 through 8 of the regulations, or as it deems necessary to implement the purpose of the act of these regulations. So as we talked earlier, some of this can be handled when the site plan review is undertaken, but number 1 is applicant shall demonstrate the circulation between the site and the street network is adequate to accommodate the traffic proposed. Parking and loading facilities should conform to the standards of section 710 through 720. Parking shall be located to the rear or interior side, not fronting the public road of buildings, unless otherwise permitted by the DRB due to site conditions. Large uninterrupted expanses of parking shall be avoided. Does anybody have concerns about subsection 1? Do you have your hand up, John?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know how large is, but that last sentence, large uninterrupted expanses of parking shall be avoided. Again, I'm curious about the sort of overall vehicle navigation space around this building. And I'm curious as to sort of what its acreage is.
Of the gravel area.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what we consider parking, but if it's parking and navigating and idling, and I don't know, like where we draw a line on what a parking spot is, but again, just trying to be mindful of that sentence. Large uninterrupted expanses of parking shall be avoided.
In the parking lot section, they actually talk about that parking lots accommodating more than 20 vehicles shall be broken into smaller units separated by buildings, landscaping, stormwater improvements, or walkways. So that when they talk about large expanses, that was what they added that to the actual parking regs to address that.
I mean, to me, this looks like a pretty large expanse of parking / navigating / working space, but I'm not quite sure how to deal with that.
Yeah, I hadn't focused on it before, John. I think that in my mind, there's a difference between parking, which, we know what that means, is that vehicles are going to be placed there in an area, if you're dealing with trucks that need room to maneuver, like a loading facility or a loading dock, like up at Arden Harp, whatever. It has a large expanse to allow for circulation, but in my mind, I don't think of that as itself as parking. But it's,
We actually addressed that as well.
Where's that?
In 714 loading areas.
Oh, okay.
They talk about loading areas for tractor trailer
That's
trucks.
the term, okay.
Must have overhead clearance of at least 14 feet, be at least 12 feet wide and 50 feet long, with additional space necessary for access and maneuvering.
So loading area is different from parking.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate John's comment about large uninterrupted spaces, but this is a 9-acre lot, and we have an area, I'm just, roughing it out, about 110 feet by 350 feet, minus the building in the middle of it. I mean, it would be nice to see it all laid out, and we're going to see that in the site plan, but I don't find this offensive or scary. Seems like pretty much normal for this type of facility.
Here's some more information. So a typical parking stall is 9 feet wide by 18 feet deep, and with an approach of 22 feet, 24 feet. So that's about a run of 215 to 220 feet, potentially in width, and which seems larger than what we're talking about here. So just by the metrics that we were talking about earlier, this is smaller than those metrics of 24 stalls.
Yeah. And going back to 394, which is the site plan review criteria, parking for vehicles in circulation is one of those areas where we have the authority to impose appropriate conditions and safeguards.
Which we can do in site plan.
Right.
Right.
As well as landscaping and exterior lighting.
Chris Acker wants this to be safe too, and we'll all make it work, I think. But the overall size does not strike me as inappropriately large.
Anybody else have any comments on subsection 1 of 356? Circulation, site and street network adequate to accommodate proposed traffic, parking and loading facilities. So there's the term again, Chris, right in subsection 1, shall conform to the standards of section 7, sections 710 through 720. Any other questions or comments regarding this one? Okay, number 2, subsection 2, safe pedestrian connections to on-site parking areas and to existing or planned pedestrian facilities located on adjacent properties or along public roads shall be provided. Access points to property edges shall be coordinated with existing and planned development to provide for pedestrian connections between uses.
If there were any other sidewalks out there, we could ask them to put one in, but there's no other sidewalks out there.
This is, it strikes me, this is not the bagel bakery, that where people or the school where people are going to walk to it and from it, or Martin's Hardware. It's not a business open to the public.
Right, and if he had a sidewalk out, he'd be the only one out there, so it would make.
Yeah, it's to existing or planned pedestrian facilities, and I'm not aware of any. Are you? No. Any questions or concerns about subsection 3? Outdoor storage of trash shall be screened or hidden from public view. So we have conditioning authority there. You're right. Chris is right. I skipped 3. Applicants shall demonstrate that they have incorporated landscaping features, trees, shrubs, fences, walls, gardens, open space, and other features into a design to reduce any impacts their use of the property might have on neighboring properties, and will enhance the appeal of the use proposed. Partial shall incorporate street trees along highway frontage to establish a canopy and provide traffic calming. We had my assessment on this one is that this is a sort of a staggered application. Chris is trying to get a feel for if the use is going to fly with this board, and if it's yes, then he's going to have to come up with a more detailed plan to address some of these things in 356 that we can review with specificity and provide conditions on under site plan review. So I think the landscaping is pretty thin at this point, but I'm okay with that, given that he's got to come back for site plan.
Kevin, can I interject quickly? Chris, if there's any expected dust generation on your site, I would think it would behoove you to take some landscaping actions to mitigate that, maybe some bushes, and explain to the board in your site plan review that design. Does that make sense? So if you're
Josh, could you repeat it? You kind of came in broken up.
Chris, if you expect to generate dust on the site, I think that your landscaping plan is an opportunity to mitigate that dust. So that's something you can describe to the board when you go to landscape site or your site plan review.
Okay.
I would just echo for Chris when he does site plan what John said, and I think it's a little bit minimal right now, and it would be good to do more in terms of landscaping.
And I would only add that landscaping can be land forming too. It's not just about pretty bushes and trees. And land forming, berming, that sort of thing can help to mitigate noise and other things that might be an issue when this zone is built out more. And as it stands today.
Just so you know, this is a mostly wooded lot.
And in that regard, at least I'll speak for myself, and other people may not agree with this. I like to leave a lot of natural woods. If it's there, if you've got a decent tree or something appropriate, leave it.
And that was my thought too, was to take the least amount, and I wanted that area open and then leave everything else wooded.
You know,
But I could certainly clear more and then landscape it if that was better. That would make it.
Well, you could work with a landscape professional on this, but I personally like to see natural things, that not invasive species, real ugly stuff. That has to kind of go. But if you've got decent trees, by all means, keep them, I think.
Yeah. And Chris, if you're going to have 10 or 15 trucks and pieces of heavy equipment, including large trucks on site in some regularity, hiding them is good, from the neighbors at least. Not that I don't like heavy equipment. I like my heavy equipment for sure, but I would get, if I were a neighbor, I'd maybe not want to see them lined up there all the time.
Little boys grow up to be big boys. We still like those trucks.
I mean, and Chris, just anticipating some of the neighbor objections based on what we've heard tonight. I mean, seeing a fleet of heavy equipment might be one of the larger objections. So any way you could design this to, as Tom said, maybe leave a lot of the natural vegetation there or something, maybe reorient the lot so it goes deeper into the lot so that you utilize some more screening from the road. I don't know. There's all kinds of approaches, but I would say you'd be getting ahead of the concerns the more you can hide that. So it's not an obvious truck yard, even though it's a truck yard.
One of the things that jumps out to me, though, is Chris is developing lot 1, not lot 3, which would be adjacent to Bridget. So there's a lot of woods in between this lot 1 and the first house.
Any other comments or concerns about subsection 3? Okay, number 4, outdoor storage of trash shall be screened or hidden from public view.
It just is what it is.
Yeah, well, we can,
Yeah.
there's two choices there. I mean, if it's on the back side, it's hidden from public view from the highway, but we have the authority to say it shall be screened. And in site plan, I think we deal with screening there too, although I don't know if it specifically mentions trash. I don't think it does. Building design, the applicant shall demonstrate how the structure they're proposing fits in with and adds to the character of the area in which it is proposed. New construction shall be compatible in design, scale, mass, and height with significant buildings within the immediate area. Anybody have concerns regarding subsection 5, building design?
This one's really tough when the mixed zone because of residential versus commercial and all that, but build a nice looking building. That's basically
Yeah, I mean, it's
I mean, I look at like right next door to Southside Precision, they put in a new steel building.
right, exactly.
It's a nice looking building.
That's fine, and he wants to build. If we only see the sample, but I think he wants to build a nice looking building.
well, we have an idea of the scale, mass, and height.
Right.
Of what Chris is proposing.
Which we're okay.
Anybody have any concerns about building design? On the board,
Yeah, we
okay.
talked about the color of the building.
Nope.
Do you have some idea?
I have not picked a color yet, no.
Do
Do you have a preference, Ted?
How about orange?
I was thinking that.
For lots within the village planning area, here's another one, John. Buildings and associated site design shall reinforce rather than destabilize a defined streetscape. Buildings should be oriented to front upon the road. However, where the placement of a building along the front setback is not practical due to pre-existing site conditions, the site plan should incorporate landscaping features such as low walls or planting materials along the setback line to create a transition between the public right-of-way and the site. Applicants should demonstrate they incorporate remove reasonable energy conservation measures for commercial structures into the structures proposed. So Chris, any ideas yet on the energy conservation measures you're going to use? You got to meet the state public building renewable or energy conservation standards, but I don't know what they propose for your type of structure. Do you have any sense of?
I mean, we're gonna use, energy efficient lights and well insulated building.
But the garage bay, that's not gonna be like R38 or something, right? Or is it?
The ceiling of it maybe, yeah. The door itself, obviously.
You're right, okay.
I'll add that the Vermont State Energy Code is some of the strictest in the country. So complying with the SEEBs is a very good and high standard. So I wouldn't go on this.
And I think that applies to any new public building.
Any new commercial building, correct. Including that bay that he's enclosing. If it's temporary.
All right. Does anybody feel there's a defined streetscape here?
Yes,
Do.
there is definitely a defined residential streetscape all the way from the bridge westward to the edge of the commercial zone. It's residential.
Well, again, it's a mixed zone.
Right, it is a mixed zone, but it's in this defined, established streetscape.
Does the building and the associated design destabilize somehow that defined streetscape?
Yeah, it does a little bit, but that's the zoning. we can't have time to make it look like a house.
It still looks like a streetscape to me. I mean, as he's proposed for.
Yeah.
I don't have a developed understanding of what defined streetscape actually means. I think of buildings fronting on the road, facing the road and oriented in the same way.
Well, part of what they're talking about here is proximity of the road. In other words, is it right
Yeah.
up on the road,
Right.
or further back, and
Right.
set back, and they go on to talk about
Yeah.
that. But the residences tend to be set closer to the road than an industrial building would be.
Yeah.
So that my sense of this is what he's proposed is pretty reasonable under the circumstances. But this particular requirement, when you have a zone that allows this kind of range of possibility from residential to this, it's I think this is as good as you're going to do.
Also,
I think
But Brenda's talking, John, I'm sorry.
the regulations don't define streetscape, so we can just discuss it all night if we want to.
Right. But we can't make him tell him his house
No.
his commercial building should look like a house because
No.
everything else looks like houses there.
No.
And everything else does.
Doesn't really, but
Go ahead,
But
John.
it's not just about what the building looks like. It's about the use of the property that we're discussing. And the use includes some very large, bright yellow, high visibility machines that are going to be sitting there a lot. So that is a difference in the streetscape. It's not just whether it's a pretty building or not. It's about a lot that's cleared that has 5, 10, 15, 20, I don't know, large pieces of bright orange or yellow, high visibility, loud machines there. That doesn't exist anywhere else on that stretch except in the commercial zone where it's perfectly fine. So I don't think that's a killing thing, but it's an observation. It's not just whether it's a green or a blue building or a high building or a low building. It's about the use of the property.
I'm not sure that I agree with that last part. It's buildings and associated site design. So I think it really is orientation of the physical structures rather than the uses that will also be there, such as construction vehicles being parked there.
Actually, I don't think we should allow that past the
All right, what's up, Brenda? You heading out?
Oh, I'll be back.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so I don't have a feeling that it destabilizes a defined streetscape. Whatever that is. Any other comments from the board on this, Carol? No? Ted?
Yeah, I agree, with your thoughts on this, Kevin. I don't have anything further to add.
Okay. Applicant shall demonstrate they comply with all stormwater requirements of the state of Vermont and adequately address drainage on the site so as not create ponding on or off the site, and they have not rerouted the flow of storm or surface water so as to cause ponding or flooding problems for neighboring properties. Does any when we haven't had a lot of testimony about that, other than it's underneath the threshold for impervious area. We can always add a condition if we want to, which is always true, that he has to get a stormwater permit if required.
Chris, did you say it's not required?
It's not required. It's 42,300 square feet of impervious.
42,300. And the thresholds.
is that the parking lot too?
That's
Yeah, but no, it's gravel. Yeah, okay.
Yep, that's right. And
42,000
gravel is impervious.
Is
as well.
impervious, right?
So it's underneath an acre.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question about the soil in the area. Is it primarily gravel down there,
It is.
or is it something else?
On top is primarily gravel, yes.
And do you know how deep the gravel is?
It was, I dug down 5 or 6 feet and it was all gravel. It was, I dug down.
Any other questions about or comments about stormwater? Exterior lighting should conform to the standards of section 552.
752.
752, sorry, thank you. It's late.
Yep.
Of these regulations, so when you get around to a lighting plan, as part of site plan, you're going to have to meet those standards. Noise should be regulated in accordance with 751. Why don't know why we got regs say it this way, because it's true anyway.
It's
No
just,
noise which is excessive at the property line represents a significant increase in noise levels in the vicinity of development and is incompatible with reasonable use of surrounding areas. No use which is excessive at the property line represents a significant increase in noise levels in the vicinity of the development and is incompatible with the reasonable uses of the surrounding area shall be permitted. Within VR and HDR, there are, which are the primary and residential districts, there are certain standards, we'll skip those. And then it doesn't address, that's where noise stops, so. We do have authority under 394, I believe. It doesn't say anything about noise.
the only comment I would make here is to try to avoid, backup signals. And I think he testified that that's one of the reasons they have the loop. That would be helpful to try to keep that to a minimum because of the proximity. The hours already limit that.
Yeah, can you remind us what your vehicles, which vehicles have backup beepers and which ones don't?
Pretty much all of them do.
All right, so you can.
Unfortunately, it's required.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if your dump truck needs to have it or.
It does.
Yeah, okay. So having an ingress, a way to go in and way to go out, different driveway, there's less backing.
My thought too would be that, we have those hours. They really don't have to pick it up before 6 o'clock in the morning, right? Because somebody will notice that. Let you know.
Any other questions about noise? Subsection 9. Signs shall conform to the standards contained in sections 740 and 748. So you've got to deal with that, Chris, when sign time comes, when you've got a sign figured out. Hours of operation should conform to the standards contained within 754. Which says hours of operation shall be limited to standards for similar enterprises. Hours of operation are generally encouraged not to begin earlier than 6 a.m. or end by 9 p.m. DRB may expand these hours to accommodate specific types of businesses to allow additional shifts within the village mix of commercial districts. So your testimony, your application, Chris, is for usage 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. absent emergencies to, if you get a call out to. All right, exactly. Right.
The overlay to 6.
We don't, number 12 is an overlay district criteria, subsection, we don't have any overlay criteria. So, any other comments, questions, concerns from the board? Any other questions, comments, concerns not already expressed, since we're pushing late hours, from the public?
Yeah, one very short question. Are the financial implications of whether this is a go or not a go considered?
You mean in like property values?
Yeah.
No.
So there's no consideration of property values?
Nope. It's not something that the legislature has given local zoning boards the power to consider. Not just in Vermont, but as I've never heard of it. It's a frequent concern expressed, but it's not a zoning concern. Even though it may be real and it may have some impact. It's frequently talked about, but it's just not something we get into, for better or worse.
Well, in my case, it's for worse.
No, I understand. It's just not, we have a certain set of jurisdictional criteria that the legislature gives to municipalities under zoning, and that's not one of them.
It can be brought up in the context of whether the zoning is proper. You know, when the master plan comes and the zoning, but once the zoning is in place, you can't bring it up.
Can I just ask, what kind of hearing is this? Is this a preliminary hearing? Is it?
No,
This is the final.
it's conditional use.
This is just a conditional use, so we're voting on whether the use is appropriate. And then there'll be another hearing later perhaps on whether the building that he proposes meets the conditions or,
No,
no, okay.
Site plan.
site plan review will happen.
I've gotten confused about, because they've changed some of these terminology, that's a.
No, site plan review will happen down the road.
The site plan review will happen down the road.
Right.
Okay, so what we're doing is we're saying, is the use is now proposed?
Where
Appropriate.
yeah, it's a conditional use application for a business yard. Any other questions or comments from the board or the public?
I have a quick comment.
Go ahead, Steve.
Just relating to the building appearance and issue of sound or noise, I should say. The lot is pretty deep there. It would seem to me that if the building was set back further, that might alleviate issues with, well, how does it look? You might have an easier time building exactly what you want. What about sound? Well, what's on the other side is another business. So you wouldn't be dealing with anybody as far as noise goes. And, you know, if you don't have a lot of people come there that are, you know, other than your employees, still have a nice sign out there and everybody know where it is. And you just push everything back a ways and that would push it out of most people's concern, I think, you know. That might be a simple solution to consider. I don't, you know, I know you've worked on some plans and everything, but it sounds like some of that can be, is flexible. It might be a simple thing and that would satisfy everybody. And that's what
Careful.
Everybody is satisfied. But just one other quick one, and that is that someone on the board mentioned that, well, the issue was Bridget's property is 500 feet away, but there are two homes almost across from the site. So there is, you know, in terms of noise, I'm the furthest away. Everybody else is closer. You know, that should be taken into account as well. But I'm just happy to have the opportunity to come to a meeting like this and be able to state my case and hear everybody else's, and I appreciate that. Thank you for that.
John, did you have your hand up? No? Okay.
So, Chris, you know, what about, you know, moving the whole thing back a ways?
But that can be the site plan.
We can deal with that in site plan.
We should just vote on the use.
But I just want to.
I would like to make a motion to approve the conditional use as presented by the applicant.
Will we get an answer from Chris to Ted first before we do?
Sorry, didn't hear you.
I think it was gonna be that, and like the first thing that comes to mind is I'm gonna be over the limits for the stormwater.
Mhm.
And that's part of the reason where it is. But I can certainly talk to my designer and see how we could do that.
Yeah, because
The roads are
the limit is an acre, right, impervious acre?
He's 42.
He's darn close, so it's,
Yeah, just
he's darn
under,
close to
yeah.
the square footage of an acre, 43,560 or something like that. So
If he
he's-
moves the site back, then he's gonna be over that. So
Yeah,
there's
so
good reason,
one-
there's good reason for it to be where it is. The house, for the development.
So, all right, Josh, you want to start restating your motion, and I want to put some specifics on the so that it's clear to Chris in the event of an affirmative vote.
I would like to make a motion to approve the applicant's submission tonight, as proposed. and as proposed with the documents provided and discussed. I think we've set up some good benchmarks for the applicant for site plan review, but otherwise not conditioning this submission for conditional use.
I'll second it.
My thought is we should include as conditions here now, the hours of operation, which were 6 to 7 at bar absent emergencies. That it's for the uses for a business yard for the contractor's excavation business. And trash shall be screened. And lastly, I think we ought to be specific, even though we may not have to be specific, to say that he shall come in for site plan review, because it's a fairly undeveloped application as far as landscaping and lighting and those kinds of things. And we've been saying, all right, when we're going to deal with that at site plan, and I don't want any ambiguity in anybody's mind that Chris has got to come in for site plan review. So I propose that as a condition as well.
I agree. Please amend my previous statement with those conditions.
Any other conditions folks think are appropriate and want to add to Josh's motion?
Just a quick question on process. So is this our only opportunity to propose conditions, or in the site plan phase, do we do that as well, or?
Yeah, we have, 394, John. DRB may impose appropriate conditions and safeguards with respect to adequacy of traffic access, circulation and parking for vehicles and pedestrians, landscaping and screening, exterior lights, signs, hours of operation, design criteria for the exterior of the building proposed, and protecting utilization of renewable energy resources. So we've got lots of topics that we can address with conditions if needed in site plan when Chris's concept is more fully developed.
So if I leave any specific conditions unspoken now, assuming they're not satisfied, or I have another opportunity to.
Yeah, if it's within those topic areas.
If it's as to site plan, not as to the conditional use itself.
Right, but hours of operation or design criteria, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all to do with this, yeah.
Yeah, if it's in, the answer is yes, if it's within one of those topic areas of section 394 that I just read.
And if it's not, if it's noise isn't
one of them, but the noise is, well, it's got there's not lots of guys here. What is it? 751.
Pretty bad.
Excessive at the property line, or represents a significant increase in noise levels in the vicinity of the development, and is incompatible with the reasonable use of the surrounding area. So it gets more specific only with respect to the high density residential district or the village residential district. Doesn't say anything about village mixed district.
But we do have a noise ordinance that applies to all districts, don't we? It's general, but.
751, that's the.
That's it.
Yeah, it's just not particularly, it's qualitative.
I think it's incumbent upon us to contemplate what the two biggest exceptions to any development like this might be. One is definitely going to be noise. Another one is going to be visual impact. And so I don't want to pass on noise at this point, because I think noise and lighting are two big ones for me. And I think if those are addressed, the neighbors can live with a thing like this. So I don't want to foreclose the opportunity to address those with a vote right now.
All right, so, well, boy, I'm just looking, is noise in our site-specific 3-6?
Yeah, number 9 and through 56.
Oh, 9 is on
Number
this
9
page.
on the next page. Noise shall be.
Yeah, so the noise just refers us back to 751, which I just read, which is, do you have something specific in mind with respect to noise, John?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a neighbor and I got 5 trucks idling starting at 6 a.m., 5 or 6 days a week, I'm probably going to have an issue with that.
So my question is the same. Do you have a proposed condition?
Well, I don't. My question really was, this is the only opportunity I have to propose a condition along that line. Is that right? On noise?
Site plan.
Well, I'm not, where, Chris? I'm not.
You give me some, whatever it
It's
was.
394.
And the other issue, as long as you're looking at that, is lighting. And the neighbors justifiably, that's always a big one, right? I mean, people have problems with noise and lighting. And
Definitely in 394.
Lighting you can do in the site plan.
because if there's multiple large yard lights out there, like a large barn light made for general area lighting and shining in people's windows 500 feet away, I mean,
It's absolutely within site plan.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. That's available in 394. But noise, there's hours of operation and could be part of that, but otherwise it's not, there's nothing specific about noise in any other place, but hey, it's distracting. Brenda. No, but you're distracting me.
Starting out noise.
So noise within conditional use, John, just refers us to 751, which doesn't say much of anything to help us. And if you had something specific,
how about nothing more than 50 decibels at the property line?
I
can't vote for that. I don't know exactly what that means. I mean, I know what 50 decibels is, but
Yeah.
but I think most people don't.
All right.
Well, it can be measured.
I have a suggestion. Other than that noise proposal, John, are there any others that you have? My suggestion is maybe we take the 4 that there seems to be general agreement on and vote on that. And then we can take up individually whether there are any additional conditions proposed by anyone and seconded. That may be a way to move forward given the hour.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to give up on the noise thing. I mean, I think that's going to be a big one for the neighbors.
So the way I've typically seen this dealt with is a noise mitigation plan by the owner. So maybe Chris can present a noise mitigation plan, i.e. having the vehicles travel one direction, thus reducing the amount of backup noise from his vehicles, reducing, which he's already stated. Also, keeping the speed limit on the site down. Maybe that's another condition of his plan. Limiting to 15 miles an hour on site, which will reduce the amount of noise. And generally complying with the town plan for matching the use and type in that area, which is sawmill, which is a very high bar for noise generation.
Well, but that noise happens inside. That's mitigated by a building around the noise.
I'm just thinking about all the trucks that are moving logs around, which is very akin to the type of work that's going on in the proposed site. I mean, I see the function as very akin, it got light commercial out on Route 7 and you've got lumber yards up and down the street. So I don't see this as being an issue.
Actually, I don't see it as being much of an issue either. I live next to a very large parking lot in which the business, which is Martin's. The business opens at 7:30. Trucks come in there. For the most part, as long as you don't have trucks running for hours in the middle of the night, you're okay. It's not that much noise.
Could you
We need to have a vote.
Standards.
Well, I go back to my point. Why don't we've got a motion and seconded on
You can't close it out. 'cause-
Brenda.
Yeah, I'm talking about noise.
I know. Why don't we vote on the conditions that are on the pending in the current motion, see how that vote goes, and then take up this noise issue and any others that people will propose are supplemental conditions, and either they fly or they don't. Otherwise, we've got one more to do.
Kevin, can you repeat your conditions? I did not condition the submission. So can you repeat your conditions and then let's vote on that and then address the noise?
Yeah, one, the applicant shall apply for site plan review. Trash receptacles shall be screened. Hours of operation shall be 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. So not start before 6 a.m. and not proceed past 7 p.m. Absent extraordinary circumstances, we'll say, or emergencies. Truck trips shall average, we'll say, 15 trips a day. And those were the 4 that I had. Does that sound right, Peggy?
I didn't have the truck trips average, but that's fine.
I might have snuck that in, but I might have written down, even if I didn't say it before. So
We don't do limited trips.
no, I said on average.
If I'm limited, I can't be limited on trips.
Well, I said on average. Is it going to be 15 on average?
I don't know.
Well, it's part of what we're here for, is to figure out.
Yeah, it's something that I had not thought about a lot. I threw out some numbers here, but I honestly don't know. And I don't want to be in a situation where I feel, I do this.
I'm not comfortable with that last condition.
All right, we'll take number 3 out, or number 4 out about the truck trips, since maybe I thought I said it, but maybe I didn't. So that leaves us with shall apply for site plan review, shall have trash screening, shall and the hours of operation shall not be before 6 a.m. and or proceed past 7 p.m. Absent extraordinary circumstances or emergencies.
We're asking for a second now.
Well, that's those. I think we've got the motion in those 3 things, but if not, go ahead. Yeah, that's my proposal to add that to the motion.
But I think this needs to be a separate motion because we're not approving the conditional use right now. You are.
Yeah, these are the conditions.
Okay, and then we're doing that, and then we're going to see whether we're going to add another condition. Okay.
Any other conditions, right?
Got it. Okay. Seconder, no problem.
Okay. Any other debate on the motion on the floor? Okay, proceed to a vote. All those in favor of approval of the conditional use for business yard, subject to the 3 conditions identified, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. So we have Brenda, Carol, Ted, Tom, Kevin. Opposed? John? Oh, and Josh, you were in on the yay or the nay?
It was on the yay.
You're on the yay. Okay, so
Got that all, Peggy?
got that, Peggy, and John is a nay. The others are yays?
Yes.
Okay. Now, all right, so that part's approved. Is there a motion for any other specific condition to add?
I'd like to move that we add a condition that noise shall not exceed 55 decibels at the property line at any time. 55 is a very common standard throughout the country.
Do you know what your trucks produce?
It depends where they're parked in relation to the property line.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be,
Well, do we have a second first? If we
Yeah,
have no
sorry.
second, then it doesn't go anywhere.
I guess no.
Vice for lack of a second.
All right. Any other proposed conditions? So move and see if you get a second. All right, seeing none. We're done with Chris. Thanks, Chris.
The next time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, what is it, 10 o'clock?
Wasn't sure the way you worded it.
I have a vote here for the zoning administrator for his scheduling.
Yes, but we don't know how long.
4 things.
Oh, 4. That's right. Well, theoretically, it's.
No, it's 4.
I know, but it looks like 3.
I don't know how, but when you look at old business. All right, next. Is that what you recommend?
If you want to keep that map, I do. That's fine.
I would love to keep that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It has explanations.
Got a lot of good information.
All right, does anybody need a quick bathroom or other
We're
break?
discussing over on,
Go to bed.
or not road.
No, I'm with you. I'm good.
We have one more hearing, which is on Lower Notch Road, if you are interested.
I'm just curious what it is.
Okay.
It's like the last one. You guys.
All right, let's move. Let's get moving. All right, old business. Come to order, folks. This is a continuation of permit number 21-400, Emily Spalding and Peter Freilich at 49 Bristol Cliffs Drive, parcel number 090158, requesting planned unit development approval. There was uncertainty last time around, shall we say, about how the applicant wanted to move forward. So what is the proposal?
Sure. Before, we certainly don't want to be here much longer than we have to. You waited.
And identify yourself.
Jason Barner.
I'm not used to seeing you live. We've seen you. Okay.
So we've sat through 3 hearings, both meetings. We've been at the end of both of these. So we certainly want to make this quick, get to the board. We did have a chance to sit down. We were kind of on the spot during the last meeting to try to make a decision. We didn't want to be in that spot. We want to have a well thought out project. We continue to believe, the applicants and I continue to believe we came through with a well thought out project. We've gone through the development review regulations in regards to PUDs. We continue to feel that it does fit the mold of the PUDs. We do recognize that there are members of the board that disagree with that. The purpose of creating a smaller lot in this case with what we proposed in the original application is to preserve a nice field out front. They have horses. Mrs. Spalding has a new horse that has recently arrived. She wants to potentially do a barn out there someday. They would like to not have to do a 2-acre lot that includes any of that land. And if it were to include any land out back, given the topography and the existing structures, it would not be a very well carved out parcel. Therefore, we continue to believe this is the best use of the property, fits the bill of the PUD. It's consistent with the town plan and meets the zoning regulations with the exception of it has a smaller lot that's less than 2 acres in size. We would like the board to reconsider or look at this further with this PUD option.
So you've maintained your original proposal, which is a smaller lot, new lot, smaller than the minimum lot size, and then the remainder, the larger lot, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
With a density-based zoning in mind, that we're not increasing that and wouldn't be able to in the future because of it.
Right, okay. So the proposal is as it was.
There was a question also how they felt about a condition.
Oh, yeah, and we can.
I think we should ask that question.
Well,
what was the condition?
Well,
Further subdivision.
There was talk about possibly, or the concept of, and only talk about a condition. We have the power to add conditions, and we could add a condition that the larger lot shall not be further subdivided, and that's what had caused some and we don't have I don't know whether there's a consensus on that. The topic came up. And so we have the authority to do it. And if we pass a PUD with a condition, and somebody doesn't like the condition, they can appeal it. You know, and if they,
or that the
or
field
live
in
there.
question be kept intact and there will never be any building on it.
Well,
I mean,
Well,
if we are preserving.
if you say it doesn't subdivide,
Yeah, I
you
don't
don't
think
subdivide
we
it.
can't say. We
They
have
can
to
put a
say.
barn on it or something. Kept intact is the same thing as saying no further subdivision.
it's 2 acre minimum, it's over 6 acres. My concern was that 4 acres not be divided, and you wind up with four homes.
Right, I mean, and John,
And if we
John's,
can condition that, then I'm fine.
John's concern, hey, John? John Moyers.
So,
Hey, so John, and I'll paraphrase or summarize, but and I think John articulated it well. The concern was that this was not a planned concept from the start. He was concerned about the incremental use of planned unit development. I'm trying to be concise, but is that a fair representation, John?
I would say that this, when I read the language of PUD, it's clear that the whole development is thought of in advance. This is just a subdivision that they don't want 2 acres on. So I'm not for it because it hollows out our meaning of PUD. If this is a PUD, then everything is a PUD, or could be if the applicant wants to call it that. There's plenty of land here to get a slice off that would comport with our zoning. Why not just comport with the zoning?
Well,
Yeah,
they could, but there was some, after the second hearing, they wanted to sort of reconvene and decide whether they wanted to go forward and see how the original proposed PUD would fly or not, or fly with conditions. That's what they've done. Any questions from Jason?
sure. So, with regards to the PUD, we did put together another option as well with doing a set aside to get to the 2 acres to compensate for that. How this would look if this were cut up to make the 2 acres, it would be on the westerly part of the property. It would have to go around the existing structures. Chris does have that with option 2. You can see that's a set aside, which would be another 0.58 acres, which would get us over that 2 acres, would have that go with the big lot, but it would still be land that was set aside in perpetuity to get you that 2 acres. So we feel.
Yeah, what do you mean by a set aside?
Setting aside a balance of another 5.5 acres to get over that maximum.
What does that legally mean? What is set aside?
Land that would not be ever be developed.
Well, that
Not
just
developable now.
Right?
You just mean open space.
It's open space, but it
All right,
wouldn't be
okay.
even if it were 2 acres.
There's no concession in conceding that a lot that could not be developed won't be developed.
Yeah, I mean,
This
Jason,
is a fairly standard practice.
It is.
Where what the goal of the PUD is by creating the lot, when you use a set aside, the owners are acquiescing the development rights on the additional acreage.
no, I mean, they set aside common land, which is actually deeded that way in the documents. And that's my question. And I understand the concept of common land. You're clustering in order and keeping land common. I didn't know, I was unsure of what this term set aside was actually intended to mean here.
This could certainly be designated as common land. Okay.
Well, maybe because it's 10 o'clock.
No, I don't think it's because it's 10 o'clock. I think it's because we're backing into this. We're doing acrobatics to push a proposal through that doesn't comport with the zoning when it perfectly well could. So there's a lot of acrobatics involved to try to make it go through. And that's why it's not a linear thing. It's like, it doesn't really make sense to me. And when I read the definition, if I could have a moment more,
Please, John.
when I read the definition of planned unit development, here I'm reading now, means one or more lots, tracts, or parcels of land to be developed as a single entity. We already have a single entity. The existing house is here. We're not planning a new development. We're just splitting this 6 acres into something else. And I just don't see why we should set a bad precedent, why we should waive the zone here, the minimum lot size here, when slicing off a little bit more property and giving oneself an easement to cross it on a driveway or something like that could very easily settle the matter.
So my point, John, was that what I don't want to do is have this approach where we're given multiple proposals and we get to pick one. I don't think that's appropriate. The applicant gives us there's an application before us. We're gonna consider that application. We'll vote on it one way or the other.
Well, let me say this, Mr. Chairman. I would vote for this PUD, but I would want to condition it on no further subdivision of the balance of the property. I disagree with John that the PUD cannot be used in this way. I think it can be used in this way, but I am a little concerned about incremental development on this property. And I take the applicant at their word that they really want to keep the rest of the property the way it is. So I would just say they can't further subdivide it. They can always come back and start all over. But I think that would be a condition of me voting for this PUD.
But then it's not really a PUD. I
Sure it is.
I agree with.
It is. It's a PUD.
John,
it really is. It's a PUD.
How is it different from a subdivision if it's
because it allows for relaxation of various standards.
But our condition on it is that they can't further subdivide it, so that the other 4.92 acres can't be further subdivided.
Any other questions or comments?
So I just have a comment from a zoning standpoint and from a planning standpoint, and that I find that taking a 4-acre lot and it's in a 2-acre zone and preventing further subdivision on it. If they came in here, they have 6+ acres, they could create 3 building lots. You're going to take one of those building lots in the future away from them. When this property changes hands in the future, we're tying the hands by putting that condition.
I agree. I would, but if they don't want to do that, then do the 2 acres. Then it's the problem with using this PUD in order to create this circumstance and then further subdivide. That feels abusive to me, because it's a kind of an incremental use of it. However, I do understand why the 2 acres is not terribly logical. I understand the logic between what they're doing there, and I like what they're doing very much. I don't think the set aside does anything for me. I think that's just a construct. I don't think that. I suppose if they deeded that, they wanted to deed that weird piece of property.
It'd have to be designated as limited common area or something.
Well, if it adds up to 2 acres, they could actually subdivide it.
It's not the application.
I get that.
That's my point. And
Well,
we're not going to shift applications on the fly and amend them.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I will vote positively for this, but I would want a conditional.
Boards get into trouble when something is noticed one way and there's a particular application, even though there aren't maybe other people here, but you can't have the application be presented as an apple and then within the context of that hearing, change it into an orange because the applicant says, well, or we can do it this way. You just can't do it.
Yeah, but what you can do is we can pass it and put a condition on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we can do, what we can't do is if they either have to amend the application or not.
What?
Can I ask you about this orange? You're saying apples and oranges. Number 3, this map, the 3rd proposal.
We're not considering the 3rd.
We're not considering it at all.
I'm ruling as chairman.
No,
the only thing before us is the application presented. I don't care about proposal or proposal 3.
I'm simply asking you what we're doing again.
Yep, and I'm saying again, one application is in front of us. We're going to vote one way or another on it, with or without conditions. Does somebody have a motion?
I have a motion I would move that we decline this application as presented.
And does that have a second?
I second it.
All right, and we could rule on that motion, and if there's an additional motion to approve with a condition, we can take that up, whether there is or not. Okay, any other debate about, John, who seconded? I missed it.
I did.
Brenda did. Did you get that, Peggy?
I did.
Okay, thanks. Any other debate?
I just would like to make a comment in the midst of all this. I think that this PUD helps to fit some development properly within that land and still preserve that. I think it's a proper use of a PUD, in my opinion.
Okay.
Well said.
Any other comments before we vote?
Okay, let me just be clear. Josh is voting, not Rob. Is that correct? Because it's going to be close.
Yeah.
That's what we agreed to earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good clarification, Carol. Thank you. I'd forgotten that.
Then we have a negative vote. If you vote yes, you're voting against it.
That's right. John's proposal is to deny is to deny the application as presented, seconded by Brenda. Any other debate on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor of denying the PUD application as presented, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, Brenda, 3. Do we just have 6?
Yes.
Oh,
We have 7.
all right. So there's 3 to deny, so the motion fails. Any other motions?
Well, no, you have to ask for opposed. They might.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Any, those opposed to the motion that John made? Tom, Josh, Carol and Ted's. Okay, so the motion fails 4-2. The votes on the motion are 3 in favor to deny, 4 against. So the motion does not pass. Do we have other motions?
Make a motion that we approve the PUD with a condition that there not be further subdivision of the larger lot.
Is there a second?
I second.
Carol seconds. Josh?
I'd like to discuss the condition, please.
Okay.
As would we.
Alternatively to limiting the, as proposed, I'd like to condition the site to keep the horse field in the front of the property clear and free of future development. So in lieu of limiting the subdivision of the PUD, I would like to keep a free and open area in the front of the property. Sorry, I'm suffering 10 o'clock brain. Does that make sense?
I have a question, Josh. They did say they wanted to maybe build a barn there. Would that be included in your prohibition?
I think that would be appropriate for that use in an agricultural use. So I would say that'd be okay. I would say limited from residential development, future residential development, privatized residential.
Well, that's the same as saying no further subdivision.
Not completely.
You know, you can put a third house in the PUD, but you can't provide that house in that field.
No, I'm confused now. The proposal, the PUD proposal is this small lot and then the big 4+ acre lot. And the motion is no further, to prove it with the condition that there be no further subdivision of the big lot.
He's suggesting instead of no prohibition of subdivision, instead you prohibit develop except for agricultural development of the field area, which is, it's not defined any more than that.
I don't know. You gotta try. I guess I just missed your condition, Josh. Can you read?
The condition is the large field in the front of the property. It's shown with a dash square in the.
I see it.
That no further residential development occur in that area. That be limited to agricultural use, such as a barn.
All right, I think they get to the same place, but
well, my condition allows them to put a third house potentially on the lot.
I don't think they do get the same because you could actually.
I thought you just said limited to agricultural use, Josh.
In the front of the property, if they were to identify a third building spot for a residence in the back of the property and still be within the lot coverage requirements.
You're saying, so the open space part between the road.
Right, they could draw the line.
So what they're doing is they're creating set aside, back to this concept of set aside land.
No,
The pasture.
No, don't confuse it, Chris.
Yes, you could draw another line and leave the two front lots open as long as you don't develop it. It's a different way of carving it up, but it does allow them to do a sub.
Well, you can't have more than 3 lots on that.
Yeah.
3 max, that's the densities.
Yeah.
It's
Three
3,
houses.
so
So,
every house has a lot, whether it's a tiny lot or a big lot, but
Yeah.
the density is 3. So, all right, I'm really confused now, so I'm not sure,
Could
what's
we
up?
restate the motion, please?
Because Tom, well, no, I can't, I'm not sure. So, Tom,
The original motion?
Tom and Josh were talking about a motion, somebody clarify.
All right, my motion was that we accept the PUD and we prohibit further subdivision of the larger lot. As I understand Josh's proposed substitution to that, it is that we approve the PUD, but we condition it on that no further development can be made of the property in the front in that squared off area except for agricultural development.
Okay.
Do you accept that as,
I could accept that.
All right, is there a second?
so what is the actual motion you're voting?
Well, if I accept it, you'd have to accept it as a second.
I don't accept it.
She didn't accept it, so we're still with the first motion.
Okay.
I second your motion, Tom, as originally presented.
All right, so we have a motion on the table, which is to approve the PUD as applied, as in the application, with the condition that there be no further subdivision on the larger of the 2 lots, which I'll call the existing house lot. That's the motion. Tom made it, Josh seconded it.
No, Carol seconded.
Oh,
that,
Carol.
And Josh changed it.
But
No,
that's not, Carol seconded it.
Carol seconded it. Josh's proposal is not before us. Any,
Discussion?
yes, any discussion?
Yeah, while I think this is maybe a somewhat elegant solution as far as getting at one of my concerns, it doesn't get at the other concern, which is I think if we approve this as a PUD, then pretty much anybody who wants a waiver from density zoning, that sort of thing, is going to be just calling their thing a PUD, even if it's already got a house on it. Even though the P in PUD stands for planned, not, oh, now I want another house on my property or a second property to put another house on. So I just worry about that as a precedent generally. And so I'm not going to support this motion.
I'm rarely concerned about precedential impact because every case is different. So I'm almost never going to feel bound on a new application for something I did before. Everything's unique and there are multiple considerations.
You wouldn't think, as an attorney, though, you might have a good answer to this. If an applicant did this and had room to subdivide, they come back later and say, oh, now we want a sub 2 acre lot, or a property, a house on sub 2 acre lot. How would we say no to them then if we had said yes to them before? The same group.
Legally, you can always say no because each, as long as you have a reasonable basis to do so, you are not bound. And each property is unique. It's unique by what's surrounded. It's unique by all sorts of things. So whatever I do on this one doesn't tie my hands in any way with respect to some future question. I never worry about that. Honestly, so. Otherwise, and you can always say from a legal perspective, you know what? I got that one wrong. I'm not doing it again. We're not controlled by the dead hand on the tiller of what this board did way back when or recently. We're just not. From my perspective only, I agree with you, John, about this incremental notion of planned unit development. I don't like it at all. When the room when the property has the capacity to actually develop within zoning. I don't really think this is a planned concept. On the other hand,
Clearly not.
I would trade it. I recognize the site limitations here and the topography and the big open field, and I'm not worried about precedent. I think it's worth it with that condition. It's acceptable to do it with that condition, and I don't think we're creating a precedent that's going to tie our hands. So I would vote for the motion.
My 2 cents on this, since I'm not voting, I just wanted to make it known, is that it is a proper use of the PUD, and that condition to further restrict it does not allow for the density-based development that the PUD is intended for.
That's the problem.
And so it goes against it. I think it goes against it, and that it was a good use of the PUD to start developing that. So.
Okay.
So can we just clarify the motion that's on the table?
The motion is to approve the PUD as applied for, not these other options, with the condition that the larger lot not be subdivided further. And if you don't want us to vote on that, and you want to withdraw your application, do it now.
Well, it's Emily Spalding. Can I say something?
Yeah, but we're not going to talk about other options.
I understand that, and I get that everybody's frustrated. It's after 10. Believe me, I get it. I would just like that when I spoke to Chris, that another option was what I thought we were supposed to bring here. So I apologize if that offended anybody.
It didn't offend us.
That was the intent. That's what we thought we needed to bring, was options that we considered to make sure that you all knew that we were being thoughtful. And I just want to make sure that I clarify that there's no negative. I feel feel like everybody thinks that we're trying to do something malicious. That's not the case at all.
No, that's not the case.
Actually, you are doing what we asked you at the last meeting. Kevin, on the other hand, was not at the last meeting.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, the last time
we
we
did not
discussed
ask them to come back with multiple options
okay.
for us.
Okay,
I was there.
I thought we did.
Well,
No,
when option means to come back with that as your not multiple options. This is what we propose.
This is what we
okay.
propose.
So
We talked with Chris.
Yeah, could you please add some about the conversation?
Well, if we
We're
propose
following
that,
guidance.
we-
Yeah.
We don't like that other option.
No, I understand that now. I just also want to make sure that you understand.
No, we understand.
I mean, we can make a very ugly 2-acre lot.
It's up to you.
have
You can do that. If we vote this and you don't like this.
But we couldn't, that's not going to be decided tonight
You
anyway.
can still do
That's not
that.
the
You can
application.
still absolutely.
Right, we can withdraw after.
And honestly, I might do that if I was you.
Can we withdraw after?
Yes. Well, you don't have to withdraw it. You will be denied. It doesn't.
No, but they may be,
vote.
this may be approved and they may not like it.
Right. Well, that's true. But then they don't have to do it. They could still come in
So
with something.
I would just like to, since everybody else has had their sort of seat at the table to say their piece, right? Is that the goal is not to develop the future land, but I mean, it's my mother's land. I would never want to take the option and the right away from her, should she need to do something for money, for whatever reason, right? So I don't feel like it's appropriate for me to take that right away from her. It's just unfortunate, right? That because of this, we will withdraw our application and I will not be able to build a home next time.
No, I think you have other.
No.
What you do is find a 2-acre lot.
The way that it is planned right now, you know, we spent a significant amount of money to put all this stuff together, right? We're gonna have to go back to the drawing board, redo, and from the advice I was given, right? From various different people, the 2-acre lot that we would fit where we want it, preserving the field, didn't make sense from a lot line perspective. It's this zigzag land that would be hard to maintain. There could be creep. Makes sense. This is what I was told, right? I'm not an expert in this, right? So this is what we went with. We advised Jason to not use the land in the field because we have horses.
No,
there's a
we
great.
understand
So
why.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I just feel the need to re-explain that because there's a lot of accusatory language and tone, and it's very upsetting for a town I would like to live in eventually.
It's not, no one's accusing you.
No, we're having for 43 years.
What's a bad idea, and we're not going to do, and we've been at this for over 3 hours, which is unfortunate, not your fault, is to, and there's a seductiveness to the option of designing on the fly with the applicant and the board, and it's a really bad idea, and we're not gonna do it, so we can't be, and it's not just a bad idea, it's illegal. Because it denies the world who got public notice their due process rights, because you end up voting on something that was not warned. So, sorry that wasn't clear to people, but that's the only concern. There's nothing implied in that oh, there was some nefarious intent or any of that. We've got to treat the application and vote on the application as presented.
Understood. No, I understand that.
No one's accusing you
but
folks.
Unfortunately, others on the board have said, we're trying to weasel our way or back into this thing, and we thought we were just adhering to that regulation, the PUD. So
There's some fairly strident feelings were stated about the use of PUD, but obviously we disagree with each other on that. And I think the majority of the board thinks it can be a PUD. The problem we have is that if it's used and then there's a subsequent subdivision, we understand that's not your intent. I also understand why your mother might want to keep that as an option.
Yeah.
But then the answer for you is do a 2-acre lot. Even
okay,
if it's
I understand
strange
that. Could you
configuration, just
could you explain to me though, so if there was these incremental add-ons that you speak about, that's clearly not the intention, but there's a density maximum, so what would?
3 houses, it's not like they can go over that. Ever, and you're still in that confines of a PUD, so wouldn't you be able to do another half acre?
That's the only piece I wasn't understanding.
Well,
That's not the plan.
totally true. But John feels a little more strongly about it than I do. But 2-acre zoning is 2-acre zoning, and he's articulating he really doesn't want.
I understand that. I'm asking you though. So what you were saying was if we did the PUD as is, and then in the future you're saying there could be incremental PUDs, but there could only ever be one more house. So you could only ever do one more lot line. So how would that change if we just were to subdivide right now into 3?
All 3 of them would be 2 acres.
Okay.
At least no.
Each one would be at least 2 acres because you'd have to do three 2-acre lots.
Unless we came in with a PUD with 3 lots.
Well, maybe we get back to the chairman's problem.
Yeah.
We can't.
Sorry,
you can do that.
I'm just asking to clarify. I'm just trying to understand.
Or if it was really going to be a PUD, you could come in with 5 residential units on this and get a real waiver and do a PUD that's like really planned that way, as opposed to a back end PUD.
Understood. I just want to be clear. The plan is to build on that addition, the subdivision.
Right. We understand.
Right. And before it was said that there was no plan for that land, just there's already one house on the property, which is my mom, which is not the case.
I don't know who said that. I didn't hear that.
John said that earlier, and the point of us putting it there.
There was no written plan. There was nothing.
John's point is that the property's already been developed with a house as a single lot. And John's point is planned unit development assumes at its core a comprehensive, thought out plan of development from the start, as opposed to you've got something and now let's do something else that doesn't comply with zoning, but we'll call it a PUD.
So sharing the infrastructure of the road and the well and things like that doesn't count towards that? No, that's what we thought we were doing, right?
Yeah, no, it does, but John's objection is to the incremental development, starting without and developing the property with a single family house and lot, and then another development within the confines of a PUD, calling it, doing it as a PUD, and that wasn't the plan from the start.
From the start, you mean when I bought the land 40 years ago?
Correct.
No, when you sent in the
No, I'm articulating in a cursory way, trying to John's point. So
could it not be assumed that?
well, his that motion did not pass.
I understand.
So now we're on to other things.
I understand that. I'm just trying to get all the information because I'm about to withdraw my application, right?
Okay,
So
no,
I would like to make sure that all
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
questions are answered since I
Sure.
listened to everybody else's questions for 3 hours. The other piece is, isn't it assumed though with the remaining land that it is conditioned with can you not put a condition that no future PUD could ever be used for those 4 acres?
Well, the problem isn't that.
I thought the problem was that if it was smaller than 2 acres in the
If
future.
it's subsequently subdivided,
Mhm.
you'll end up with 2 larger lots and the lot that you live on
Right.
being less than 2 acres. It's a workaround.
In a non-integrated way.
In a non-integrated, you will have effectively gotten around the zoning by doing that.
And that wasn't the intent.
Well, I
But that
know,
would be-
I know how to do that,
No.
but that is an abuse of the law. In other words, if all of a sudden, let's just say we didn't put this condition on, your mother decides next week
Yeah.
to subdivide the other property. You've got 2 larger lots and 1 smaller lot.
And
One's
one's a PUD to the other, but they're not integrated cohesively, collectively. And that's the concept of a PUD, is a comprehensive development
Yeah,
on
I
the site.
understand that. I thought that's what we presented, so.
You have, and the condition is to require it to stay that way. And, by not having further subdivision of the existing larger
Just
lot.
unforeseen issue, I can't put my mom in that situation, I just not, so.
Yeah, but at 10 years down the line, you know.
Yeah, I'm saying,
It's gonna be very different.
I can't foresee what that would be, so
Absolutely.
I'm not gonna take that, right?
But that's what we need to do, is foresee.
Yeah, we're kind
Can I say one thing before we get back to considering the motion on the table? I just want to thank the applicant for their patience. I mean, this is round number 3 for a residential job, and it's a lot to ask. And I want to reiterate what I think is what I'm hearing, that the tension that you're hearing is the board really trying to make your application work best within the regulation, the bounds of the regulation. So don't take it personally. It's us trying to work for you, being representatives from the town. And I think that there's all but good intent in this room, trying to do right by the community and your application. But I would like to try to return this group back to the motion on the table, which is approving I believe it was approving the application. Are we still headed that direction?
The motion is to amend the application with a condition that the larger lot be not subdivided further. But the applicant may wish to withdraw the application so that we don't vote on that proposal.
Yes.
And is she going to make that decision?
Okay, we're done.
All right.
We're not done. I got my question.
No update.
Okay, I came on this board, I was asked to come back on with the understanding that there was going to not just be approval of proposals, but there was going to be enforcement. This was put in my lap over a year ago. My understanding is property was built perhaps in a floodplain, but construction took place without a permit. Somebody came to Chris or the town, I'm not sure who they came to. And subsequently, the permit was approved. And when the person came back to me, the question was, what can I do? I'm now being told that it's too late. The period after the approval has expired. So my feeling is there's no enforcement of.
The history.
And I feel like Chris has been evasive. I feel like Chris has been evading having to deal with this issue. And it's not getting any better because the construction has, according to the original complaint, is continuing on this property, which may well be in the floodplain. So there's 2 issues for me. It was begun, the construction, before the permit was issued, and the applicant may have not provided accurate information about where the construction was in terms of the river floodplain. We have a lot of people talking for lighting and sound. Well, I feel like I'm talking for the river, and I don't feel like I'm getting any support on this board on this issue. So that's why I keep bringing it up week after week.
I'll be honest with you, I have no comment to make about it. We can discuss this offline. First and foremost, the permit that was applied for was for a primitive camp. That was not being constructed before that permit was issued.
When was the permit issued?
I have to pull it out of my desk.
I believe it was a year ago in June.
So please,
do you guys go offline and discuss?
Yeah, we can get, because
Well, I keep asking.
and secondly, I really want to be very clear, this is not the purview of the DRB. In all reality, if you look at your statutory abilities, if that person had come during the appeal period, you would have heard the appeal. I have to, if I make a ruling on something, then it would come to you as a board. But just because somebody's unhappy that something happened is not.
I get that, and that's why I'm suggesting you two try to work this out.
I can pull together. I'll pull together an entire history, and I will email it out to you by the end of next week. I've got it, and we will both.
That's fair, but honestly, I don't know that the DRB can do anything to fix this if you're not satisfied.
Okay, well, my question is, if somebody comes and provides us with false information and then they build, we can't do anything.
Well,
No, who's we?
That's my question.
The town, if an application was, falsified is one thing, building, if somebody builds differently than what they have an application for, that's subject to enforcement by the zoning administrator. And if there's an enforcement decision is appealed to us, then we deal with it as a quasi judicial board. If someone actually provided inaccurate information, regardless of intent, a permit, I don't know what you can revoke a permit if for false or inaccurate information.
But who is the final say, sir? Would it be the select board?
No,
if you appeal a decision that
so you have something that's built there.
And then the zoning administrator, if someone complains, the zoning administrator has to enforce the regulations. And but the way the ZA does that is to say, you have to give a cause letter, show cause letter, basically a notice of intent to issue a notice of violation. And then if it's not rectified, then the notice of violation goes out. The person has, I think, 15 days to appeal to the ZBA. And we sit as judges. Remember the guy who built up at the Bristol Pond with Peter? Yeah. Bill had issued a notice of violation and it was appealed to us. And then when we sit as basically a judicial body to decide whether or not that a violation had occurred, and if so, what to do about it. So that's how things in.
What if they refuse to do anything? Where does it go then?
You can go to court.
and literally pull away their permit, or there's a possibility. Let's say Chris or somebody here made a mistake. That could happen too.
Yeah.
And if that happened, then all you could do is tell the select board maybe they should change it or something.
If someone refuses to abide by an order, say we said it's a violation, tear it down, and someone says no, then the town it gets enforced in court with the court's injunctive powers. You go to environmental court.
But I hate to see you two guys going at it at the end of every meeting. So sit down and give them that history.
Have you looked at where they built?
Yeah, I went out a year ago.
And you measured?
No, I went out because when they built it, they said that they had built a primitive camp. I went out, they built a primitive camp.
But
every site, we don't go out with a tape measure in the woods and measure distances. So what I can tell you is it was brought months after the fact that this may be in the floodplain.
No, that's not what I was.
Well,
I've got Randy's letters if you want. I mean, I've got.
What I would like to know, Chris, when you and I talk about this after everybody has gone, is when the permit was issued
That's what I'm
and
guessing.
when Randy's first letter came.
And I think that's
Yeah,
attached to it.
that's what I would
can
like
put
to
all
know,
that.
because I
So
believe
should we
the
finish this up?
order was
Yeah,
different.
yeah, so,
Where's the other
so we
thing?
have another
If it's
hearing
given-
coming up pretty soon?
The next time.
We
you
don't,
wanna
all right.
have it-
Nothing more.
Okay, hey,
It'll be done.
hey, we got one more item.
No,
I don't have minutes.
everybody's.
Motion to adjourn?
No, well, I thought we were gonna do minutes, but Chris says we're not, so, move to adjourn.
I just looked for my didn't.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
This is going to be shot.
There, guys.
Good night, thanks Peggy.
Good night.